Hey y'all, Scott here, and you might have noticed this 2-liter Mountain Dew and sack of Doritos I'm about to fling into my gullet. Don't worry, I feel a good reason for doing this coming on to me. That'll work. Not only do I want to become a true enjoyer of all things video game, but I also want an excuse to go to this hospital near me. They're really cool. They got a vending machine and everything.
Oh my god, this room is crazy. F my arteries.
You ever play Pac-Man World 2 and you're like, I could use a choking hazard right about now. Food has been associated with gaming here and there. You see, with every new Call of Duty or Halo release comes a corresponding can of Mountain Dew. Every new console release comes with oodles of sweepstakes plastered on boxes of Special K. And of course, many people like to just glutton out and stuff their face while playing a game. So let's take a look at some food associated with games. Basically, I went to the supermarket and loaded my cart up with anything video game related. Let's move over to this room. Yeah, you see, this is what us kitchen owners refer to as kitchen. Blam, let's get this one out of the way. Super Mario cereal took the world by storm. It's been a pretty boring few months. Released to promote Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario cereal is a Kellogg's production and includes power-up mushrooms. Well, f***, you know I had to buy it. The box doubles as an amiibo you can scan into Mario Odyssey for some small bonuses, nothing special, but still a really cool touch. Also on the back, we have some activities for you to tackle during unemployment. Enough gawking, let's crack this thing open and get to the goods. Super Mario cereal's flavor is mixed berry and marshmallows. The mixed berry is contained in these stars, and the marshmallows take the form of these question mark blocks and mushrooms, or as I like to call them, huh? And what? After going knee-deep into this cereal, I think it's alright. I don't think mixed berry is the best flavor to combine with marshmallows, but what do I know? I don't cereal for a living. If you're a kid who's begged their mom to grab Super Mario cereal at the supermarket, you're no doubt familiar with getting grape nuts instead. Around the same time Super Mario cereal released, Post cereals featured a Nintendo Switch and Mario Odyssey sweepstakes on the front of various boxes, like Honey Bunches of Oats and, of course, grape nuts. You gotta hand it to the sweepstakes, it got me to try an edible form of torture. This isn't the first time Nintendo's been plastered on cereal boxes. Back in the late 80s, the Nintendo Cereal System was a thing. It was of course promoting the Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Mario Bros., and The Legend of Zelda. 2 cereals in one! 2 slender bags of a Mario and a Zelda cereal were inside. Good for them. Now if you need to be up and about harder than ever, you might want to contact a physician / pick up some gaming related energy drinks. There's loads of these things out there. Here I just have Mega Man and Sonic branded ones. The Mega Man energy drink is called the E-Tang, which is cute, and the Sonic one is just called Speed. What is going on with Sonic's legs here? Like, yeah, Sonic usually runs so fast his legs are nothing more than a figure 8 or something, but there's that, and then there's having no legs with just scribbles below you. Giving the drinks a taste, I mean, they're energy drinks, that's for sure. And I'm pretty sure both of these are the exact same drinks. If you're into these sort of things, they're probably okay. Now, if you remove the drink from the colorful can, pop it in a standard glass, and say to me you just drank Mega Man's E-Tank, that's another story. Oh god, this is inside me. It's weird, when I drank this, I thought to myself, wow, this tastes blue. It's probably the fact these were Mega Man and Sonic drinks, but after further inspection, that is not blue. Here's some of these retro candy tins, products that will make any 30-something squee in a Target. These things have been around for a while and are just small candies inside a tin that's designed like something from yesteryear. I found a bunch of Mario and Nintendo related ones with one Pac-Man arcade cabinet thrown in there. There's one that I always wanted but never found, which was an Atari 2600 joystick tin containing gum. The joystick was rubber and everything. But whatever, we have an NES controller instead. No clue why this specifically has the Nintendo Power logo on it, but who cares? I do, these mints are pathetic. These aren't the virgin mints I was promised, these are just lame circles. What's so Nintendo Power about these? It doesn't even taste like Nintendo Power, these mints are weak. Same goes for the Mario mints as well. This is probably the lamest of all the tin designs I picked up. It's literally just a rectangle with a Mario sprite on it. The mints are blocks, which could be interpreted as the blocks in Mario games. And I don't know, I think they just found a generic design and said, that'll work. This Link tin is at least shaped like the sprite, which is cool. Inside we have Orange Sword Sours. Yeah, I have a feeling this was just a repackaging of some Christian candy. The Pac-Man arcade cabinet aesthetically reigns supreme over most of these. The top is on the bottom. Nice. It's these little Pac-Man shaped candies that to this day I still can't figure out what flavor they're supposed to be. In fact, most of these candies don't have a lot of flavor at all, to be honest. Superstar candies in a star, cherry sours in a mushroom, coin candies in a question mark block. There are tons of these candy tins, and they all feature kinda chalky, tiny candies that have very, very subtle flavors to them and aren't really that tasty. You get these things for the tin, plain and simple. If you say your favorite food is coin candies, well, the door is that way. If you're not into the tins, we can always shift gears to other types of candies. Pez dispensers are wacky plastic heads that feed you on command. But we still have to load the candies into Donkey Kong here, keep WikiHow on standby. And here we are, nice and simple, fun, fun, fun. The Wonder Ball, the first instance of the term fine dining. It's a chocolate ball with so many goodies inside. This is a crazy great deal. We get stickers, a coin, and a chocolate ball with fruity candies on the inside. This is crazy. Finally, a Luigi fan. With candy at the bottom. A Luigi fan. So many people have asked me to cover Pokemon, so I guess this is the best place to start. Pokemon Fruit Snacks. Oh, so this is what the franchise is all about. We have loads of fruity interpretations of everybody's favorite Pokemon, like Dopey, Sneezy, Bashful, the gang's all here. Overall, good first impressions of the franchise. There's also a Mario Kart variety, which isn't as Mario Kart as it is just standard Mario. But finally, we get to know, what does Luigi taste like? Now let's talk some more video game promotions. Food that's packaging is just absolutely creamed out by a hot new video game release. I think one of the most notable ones would be Mountain Dew and Game Fuel, a specific flavor of Mountain Dew that releases to coincide with a new video game release. This is actually the first release of the drink, promoting Halo 3 and congestive heart failure. 3 free Pokemon cards and a box of fruit roll-ups, let's go for it! Oh man, anybody up for 52 pickup? You get a free Sea of Thieves item per Chips Ahoy pack? Well, don't mind if I do. Now one piece of gaming food I could not for the life of me track down was Gamer Grub. This stuff always looked pretty tasty. It's fundamentally just a snack mix that was advertised as the perfect gaming snack because you can just pour it down your throat. No messy hands, no messy controllers. It came in a few varieties, PB&J, s'mores, pizza, barbecue, but I believe they've stopped making it. I saw this Reese's snack mix and it kind of invoked some of what the PB&J and s'mores was. And I just kind of looked at the peanut butter nuggets on the bag and said, close enough. And then it turned out these things were basically peanut M&Ms. Damn. And who could forget the classic Sonic the Hedgehog ice cream bar? I believe these were primarily only sold via ice cream trucks, and man, was it a hard-hitting feeling of regret to buy this instead of something actually edible. I mean, it was always fine, but nothing amazing. The eyes were gumballs, exactly what I want after a munch sesh of a frozen dairy treat. Finally, Campbell's Super Mario Soup. Let's pop this bad boy open, cook it up, and try it out. You know what? That's actually pretty good. Let me check the ingredients on this bad boy. Oh, hell yeah.
Is that a pinball machine? Oh my god, my ass is bleeding.
Hey y'all, Scott here, I got nothing. And when I'm completely bone dry when it comes to ideas, that's when we bust out the idea wheel. Let's see what we have to talk about today. Ah, son of a bitch. Okay, well I guess I'm talking about the L button today. Holy shit, I have no idea how I got 23 minutes out of that topic. Oh, Jesus Christ. Ha, the physical video game. Look at all this plastic, it's great, right? The box has always been something I've considered one of the simple joys in gaming. Something that doesn't matter in the slightest when it comes to legitimately enjoying a video game, but is something that just sticks with you. I always love just looking at the box, reading the back, seeing all the art. Physical video games are just something that I've always appreciated, and back in the day, that was partially due to the inclusion of this smattering of paper. The video game manual is something I think we only really started talking about until it started to go away. In this digital heavy age, it's easy to look back at all the little things with games we always took for granted, but really miss now that they're basically gone. Stuff like gaming magazines, demo discs, cheat codes. These aren't dead, but they're dead. Tons of my favorite video game related things have been replaced by much more resourceful and easier solutions, all thanks to this home wrecker. It's the internet, home to such things as... Now, is the internet truly a stupid looking garbage man for killing what once were these little joys of video games? I mean, no, are you kidding me? They got chat roulette on this thing. Yeah, magazines were great, but I can get all this info immediately online. Don't lie, as much as you say, man, I miss magazines. If you had the choice between only getting gaming news immediately through the internet or once a month via a magazine... I don't even have to finish that sentence, you already know what you're gonna pick. But I get it, it's the whole joy of having a physical, tangible thing to flip through, to read all this information, see pictures and advertisements for other games. You only get this thing once a month, you better savor it. With the internet literally giving you everything you could possibly want at whim, it's harder to appreciate the smaller things, like some cool formatting on a page in Nintendo Power, or finally finding out that human beings bought Faceball 2000. Damn it, Scott, you may be saying, I thought you were gonna talk about paper, not paper. We got a little off track here, but the point I'm trying to make is, things are way easier now with a lot of physical things moving to digital. The technology has advanced so much that a lot of the physical things we got back in the day are no longer necessary. But it's a bit harder to appreciate them in this form. Gaming magazines are fundamentally dead, but the content they offered isn't. This kind of stuff can all be found online, and it's way more convenient. However, I still miss the feeling of magazines. They just felt so much more special. This sentiment rings true with so many other elements of gaming, with video game manuals being the most obvious one. Buying a new video game was always an exhilarating experience pre-2011, and a lot of that was because all of this was only half the story. With most games, you would always get instruction manuals, with reading them being my favorite method of realizing I'm a fucking moron. The instruction manual was a necessity back in the early days of gaming, giving you details on the controls, the story, the characters, basically everything you needed to know to get started. In-game tutorials were a rarity. Most NES games you just pop in and immediately start playing. Instruction manuals picked up the slack when it came to teaching you how to play the game or telling the story. This is definitely why so many NES games don't really tell you what to do or how to play, because you were expected to read the manual. And oh boy, were these things made for reading. Plus, they all had a notes and memos section in the back where you could jot down little reminders. I don't think anybody actually did this, so I'll start the trend. Gotta use these more often. Look at the Legend of Zelda's manual. This is the culmination of everything that made these things so fun to flip through. All this colorful art, tips and tricks, story details, the enemies' names, even a map. This is the titan of the retro video game manual. It's great when they came in full color and almost acted like mini strategy guides. When you truly love a game, you kinda wanna dive deeper and get a better look at the characters and story, and great manuals like this one let you do that at no extra cost. NES RPG and adventure games got the best booklets. Star Tropics, Final Fantasy, Zelda 2, Dragon Warrior, all of these things got full color platters of information with extra art drawn just for it, apps, the works. It's great to see exclusive artwork in these things. Bubble Bobble had its story explained through a comic, and Mario 3's is just so much fun to look through. But not all manuals were created equally. Keep in mind, this was the era of English, mistranslations, made-up plots, spelling errors, or just completely wrong statements, all par for the course when it came to NES manuals. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, congratulations! You now own the authentic Konami home version of Simon's Quest, one of Konami's many original arcade hits. Konami lied to me? I love the game screenshots. Sometimes they literally just slammed a Kodak in front of the screen to take a picture. Other times, I guess they did the same, but added a negative effect to everything to make it easier to see in black and white. Manuals would continue to get better and better over time, even when they became more and more unnecessary. Around the SNES and Genesis era, games started to become more conscious, offered tutorials, became less cryptic, but that didn't stop manuals from really hitting it out of the park. The best ones felt like an extension of the game's world. Like, oh man, it feels like I'm with Marcus Phoenix right now, where did all this blood come from? Or just when the manual retains the style of the game, like with Red Dead Redemption. Rockstar knows how to manual. You know with them you're getting a nice thick booklet and a huge map or a poster, it's great. Even in the golden age of manuals, not everything was amazing though. You knew a game was probably not a top priority to a publisher when the manual was in black and white. It was almost a warning sign that the game you bought was stupid garbage. Not always the case, but you knew a publisher really cared when they gave you full-blown color, multiple languages, like wow, they care. Nintendo, you old dogs. Almost every Nintendo first-party release since the SNES gave us these manuals you need spark notes for. Full color, and with the Wii, multiple languages, plus these fun little flyers giving you Donkey Kong upskirts and some new game suggestions. Hey Skyward Sword fans, you'll love Wii Play Motion. Hey look, I'm in Wii Play Motion. Even when they did stuff like re-release GameCube games on the Wii via the new Play Control series, they completely redid all the manuals. They could have just changed up the control layout page and bada boom, they're done. But no, they pretty much made new ones from scratch. But they didn't retain this page from the original Pikmin manual. Come on. Things were going pretty alright in the world of folded pieces of paper with staples through it until the latter half of the Xbox 360 PlayStation 3 era, when manuals became more of a dying art form. Less and less time went into them. More often than not, you'd see black and white, and they consistently got thinner and thinner. Sometimes they just gave a small control layout on a single folded piece of paper. These could be charming. Nintendo did a lot of this with the 3DS, and this worked fairly well. I'm cool with this, although I'd prefer more detail. But hey, it could be worse. It could be a complete waste of my eye resources, because there were some games that didn't even want to do the bare minimum. I mean, at this point, you might as well just give up. If you're gonna include an instruction manual, include an instruction manual, even if it's just a control layout. At least some people will get use out of that. It can be a legitimately helpful little booklet, even if it's all in black and white and just a folded piece of paper. When you just barf some terms and conditions garbage out here, you're effectively really wasting paper. Sure, a real manual uses more paper and more ink, but some people will actually get use out of it. If you're gonna use paper, actually use paper for something useful. Go and pop the terms and conditions on the inside of the artwork or on the back of the box art. Now, this whole death of the manual thing going on could easily be associated with recent years in gaming. But let it be known that Home Improvement on the SNES was one of the most influential games of all time since it kickstarted the revolution of not including manuals. Real men don't need instructions. The manual writer really stuck it to us there. The death truly sat in for me with the release of Smash Bros. Ultimate. Here's a series that always prides itself in including manuals of the thick honkin' variety. Man, when you're holding a copy of Smash Bros. Brawl, you know it. Look at all this. Even Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, these were released when manuals were this. They showed you all the characters and their moves. This wasn't as in-depth as previous manuals, but still solid. But when we open up Smash Bros. Ultimate, nothing. And now instruction manuals are more so reserved as a premium bonus and special releases and not much more. Now, the space generally reserved for manuals are used for DLC codes, terms and conditions, or advertisements. Can't wait to pop open Sonic Mania Plus. I mean, let's be honest, when they were actively being produced for every game, it was pretty rare you'd actually crack out a manual. It was kind of something to flip through right after you bought the game in the passenger seat on the road home. Now, why do I say this? Well, take a look at the electronic manual. Who the hell uses this thing? I'm sure most people didn't even know loads of games have electronic manuals, but they're here. The thing is, barely anybody, even people who know the e-manual exists, have ever said, I don't know what to do, to the electronic manual. Most of the time, people just look up questions they have online. I mean, it's probably quicker to do that than hit the home button on the Wii U, click the electronic manual, and wait for it to load. It is kind of sad to me that the electronic manual got overlooked because some of them are really fun and have a lot of love shoved into them. These legitimately feel like the old manuals, but now in a form that allows for cool things like animation. Now, some games have manuals basically built into them. The only example I can think of off the top of my head is Mario Odyssey, and I mean, it's something that people really didn't use. So I think that shows that tutorials and in-game storytelling have replaced the instruction booklet, and the only reason we liked them was because they were tangible items. You turn a manual into a PDF, almost everybody kind of loses interest. But still, now that they're gone, every time I open up a new game, it's just disappointing. It feels like something should be here, and it almost never is. Now, one great new trend with a lot of physical games is art on the inner sleeve. Since most game cases are transparent, some companies have been printing art on the inside, which is always a treat to see. It's kind of a nice way to bring a little bit of the instruction manual back without wasting paper. Sure, I'd rather get a nice thick paper booklet and see the earth get polluted the f*** up, but I'll gladly take this. It gives you something to gawk at when you open a case up, and it's way better than Terms and Conditions McGee over there. You can find manuals and stuff like special releases of indie titles, but that's about it. Red Dead 2 came with a map, but no booklet, and Nintendo basically dropped paper inserts entirely with Switch games. Things aren't looking too good for these guys, and it's pretty crazy they're being treated as premium bonuses nowadays. I loved flipping through manuals to games I loved. I actually remember bringing a few manuals to daycare to flip through. But like with magazines and demo discs, they're obsolete, and if you bring them back, it's cool, but not a lot of people are actually going to use them. Even though they're all but gone and they weren't used that much to begin with, they'll always have a place in my and countless others' hearts. Well, as a tribute to the instruction manual, I will fully commit to one and carry out whatever it tells me to do. Oh, okay. Hey all, Scott here. Try before you buy. That's my motto. You can give a product a test run, and if you decide you don't want it, shouldn't have to pay for it. You know, I don't actually know if I actually want this. Where's my receipt? I would be the smartest homeless guy ever. I would locate all stores with free food samples and feed off of that. I would hide in IKEA and sleep there overnight. I would ask for money with flair, and for my video game entertainment, I'd only buy demo discs. Go ahead, try to not see the value in this. I dare you. $7.99 for 12 great games. Demos of 12 great games, but $7.99 for 12 of anything is a steal. Maybe except cholesterol. Video games are a big commitment in terms of time and money, so you really want to make sure the game you're thinking about buying is truly up your alley. Nobody wants to be the guy with only $60 who spends it all on Ninja Bread and cigarettes. You want to make sure what you're buying is right for you, which is why demos of games are such a big deal. You get to test drive the game before you buy it. Who wouldn't want to do that? Me? I bought these. Do I look like a demo player? Demos are usually downloadable for free. But what about back when the term downloading meant something completely different? The 90s was home to two things, the cheap clone and video game consoles shifting from cartridges to discs. Discs were way less expensive to produce compared to cartridges, so companies decided to take advantage of that. They started producing more discs to sell other discs. The demo disc was normally a promotional item given away for free, and they were amazing. Just the fact you would get a tangible game to pop into your console to play a sampling of a bunch of different games was such a cool feeling. Like, you not only got a free game, but multiple free games on your one free game. Demo discs truly got their start on the PlayStation 1. Sure, PCs had demo discs, but what the f is that? With the PS1, you can't talk about demo discs without bringing up the menace of Italy. Pizza Hut, you know Pizza Hut, eat fresh. They held this big promotion where if you bought this pizza, you'd get a demo disc, and the disc will tell us if we won the big cash prize of 500 grand. For everybody involved, it was a win-win-win. Pizza Hut, you know Pizza Hut, think outside the bun. They got a ton of PlayStation fans buying their pizza to grab a free game and actually try Pizza Hut. PlayStation got the Pizza Hut fandom to try a bunch of demos for popular PlayStation games, and that definitely led to more games being sold, and sodium intake reigned supreme across the board. We have 3 Pizza Hut demo discs. The first one was given out during the Pizza Powered giveaway. When Pizza Hut and PlayStation team up, it'll detonate your senses. To some extent, I still haven't recovered. They did another promotion later on, this time with 2 different demo discs available. We have the CTR Diagnosed Disc 1 and then the Best Disc. A demo of the next Tetris, that automatically makes Disc 2 just as good as the next Tetris, because a demo of Tetris is pretty much the same as full Tetris. Sledstorm, you can't have a demo disc without Sledstorm. The games included on these things are pretty much some of the most defining games on the PS1, some of the greatest games that generation. Sure, these were just mere demos of them, and while some of them are the Crash Warp demo, I don't want to buy this game. Under the mindset of a kid with limited funds, getting a disc with 5 highlight reels, if you will, of some of the best PlayStation games ever made, that's not bad at all. Some of these demos were so good at showcasing the games that I know a lot of people would just keep replaying the demos over and over again. Not only that, but it's just cool to see all the effort put into these things. They put a lot of work into these simple giveaway items, and that's just really cool. But when I think demo discs, I immediately think of the ones that came a part of your magazine subscriptions. PlayStation Underground. While a lot of print magazines came bundled with free demo discs, PlayStation Underground demo discs were the magazine you subscribed to get demo discs. Some of these discs could be picked up at stores for $5 a pop, which was still a fair price to pay for all these demos. But not only would these demo discs come with demos, but they included my favorite things ever, doodads. Imports, games that didn't leave Japan, you could play demos of them here. Codes to put into other games, videos, trailers, behind the scenes. These discs were like a big cheap to free pile of pure content. Even if I couldn't give 2 left pisses about Siphon Filter 2, there's like 9 other demos on this disc. There's bound to be something that catches my interest, and if there's not, there's tons of other things to do. Some of these demo discs have more content than some real life games. The jam-packed discs were made for the PlayStation 1 and 2, and I remember seeing my cousins have a few of these lying around. Back then, I'd see the discs and everything included and say, damn, that's a deal. And then I'd say, oh shit, I'm 6, and said, damn, I'll make my way to the corner. Besides, I was more of a GameCube player anyways. Now, Nintendo didn't go that crazy with demo discs for the public, especially now with magazine subscriptions. Nintendo at the mere idea of giving away free demo discs with Nintendo Power? No. They were more into sending out promotional DVDs or VHS tapes, but with the GameCube, they dabbled in the demo disc genre. The Nintendo GameCube Preview Disc. This was available as a part of certain console bundles. You got a couple of demos, including a bonus Soul Calibur 2 demo. Why not just put it on the cover? Some trailers, and if we connect the Game Boy Advance, we can download a WarioWare demo and Dr. Mario. Listen, this is great, good for them. But what about the demo discs Nintendo didn't want you to have? The Interactive Multi-Game Demo Discs, or IMG2Ds for short. These were sent out to major retailers to be played on their GameCube display units. You know the classic game console kiosks in stores where you could play games with buttery controllers? Well, many were playing demo discs, and the GameCube ones were made specifically for stores at that point in time. Popping one of these in is like traveling in time to whenever that specific disc was distributed. Like, wow. Muscles coming out. A bunch of demos and trailers are included. I really love that these demo discs help preserve high quality versions of all these old game trailers. If it weren't for the demo discs, we'd have to rely on whatever IGN put up on their website 15 years ago. These all come in their own cases, which really make them feel like a substantial part of the GameCube library. They were originally released with the time of year labeled on the cover, but they shifted over to just numbering them. So this is really a fun little thing to collect. Each copy is like $50 a piece, and you can get through everything on the disc in like an hour. Plus, some demo discs are pretty much the same as others. Don't spend $50 on these thinking your week is set. Demo discs were at their height during the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube era. And pretty much everybody was making them. Sometimes single games got demo discs, like Resident Evil 4, or third-party studios released their own, like the LucasArts experience. Yep, it's truly a different experience when you're playing LucasArts. This Xbox Exhibition demo disc is another one I have, and this thing is incredible. Not only does it include Whacked, but we have extra content for Dead or Alive 3 we can install, clips from G4 and other trailers, music videos and songs we can download to our consoles. This is a demo disc. It's absolutely incredible. Things were looking great for demo discs, but then this happened. This bar ruined everything. Demos became downloadable on most systems for free. You don't have to depend on whatever demos are available on this disc you got for free. You can just download demos for just the games you're interested in whenever you want. This didn't like immediately kill the demo disc. I mean, I have this one demo disc for the Xbox 360 and I checked it out. It's pretty cool, but it's sort of worthless. If you had an internet connection, you could download all of these for free. I mean, yeah, with the disc, you're not clogging up a ton of room on the 360's hard drive, but the fact I can download these demos for free makes this less neat. There's this demo disc that came with a version of Kinect Star Wars, and most recently the PlayStation VR got bundled with a few, but it's just not the same. It all has to do with the era these were released in. Like, yeah, I could pop this in, but I don't give a shit. Demo discs were like a hand-picked platter of goodies just for you. We live in a time where we can pick whatever we want to play, watch, or listen. Pretty much any content we could possibly want is available on demand. It's beyond convenient and nice to be able to download whatever demos you want only for the games you're personally interested in. But back when that wasn't the case and you didn't have an unlimited supply of demos available to you, having a demo disc with a good handful of them made it more likely you were going to play through each and every one and be exposed to games you may not have considered playing originally. They were awesome variety packs of gaming experiences. Sure, they weren't the full games, but a lot of these demos were fairly in-depth. You could get a lot of game time out of some of these. And then there was Crash Warped on the Pizza Hut demo disc. You know Pizza Hut, just do it. But why play demo discs today? Well, if your schedule's wide open and you're into fun retro gaming novelties, these things are a ton of fun to look back on. It's so charming to check these demos out today. They're almost like alternate reality versions of these beloved games. Like everybody knows Mario Party 5, it's Mario Party 5. But seeing this edited down version with specific minigames available is weirdly engrossing to me. Just seeing these screens that are rarely seen today, like how at the end of some demos it'll say, "Coming soon," or just seeing demo on the title screen and options grayed out for games over a decade old, it's kinda cool. These are versions of games that have not really seen the light of day in quite a few years, and it's really fun to go through them. Demo discs are like magazines and instruction manuals. They're fun to go through, and I wish the magic of them would come back, but we have much more convenient methods of delivering this type of content now. And demo discs just aren't necessary anymore. But they're way cooler than this. Video game demos will never leave us, but demo discs are becoming rarer and rarer with each day. I can't say I don't understand why, but they had a certain magic and charm to them that I don't think will ever be replicated, as demos are just downloadable now. But you can't make egg demos downloadable, believe me, I checked. Hey all, Scott here. I'm leaving the door open now. I don't know, it was fun. Been on a good streak lately. Air jump the shark. I have it all now. Scoliosis, mitosis, bed bugs, bed bats. Oh, I got some free time to kill as I heal up. I might be able to actually play some of these games here. Or shapes. Fuck them. They make everything more complicated. Without shapes, I wouldn't care about the Wii U and GameCube boxes being the same thing. You ever have those things with a medium you enjoy that you overly care about that nobody else seems to? Like you're a big fan of numbers, but man, you're really into 7. I have that thing with video games. See, I should care more about what's inside the box, but man, I'm too busy wondering what the hell these letters are on Mario Sunshine's cover. I love playing video games, but sometimes I love everything surrounding them just as much. I love the little details of the art, the marketing, what these things are gonna look like on my shelf. And when a new console is releasing, it's pretty much on par with expecting a child. You have to get the room all prepared for the arrival, picturing what it'll look like next to the rest of your children in Sega Saturn. It's a big deal. This will be your life for the next hour until you get bored, so it's important to plan ahead. And what makes that easier is when they reveal what the game boxes for that system are gonna look like. Dog shit. They look like dog shit. Every game system has what I like to call the box art templates. The people behind the game create their own art to represent their product, but they have to take into consideration the fact that their art had to slide onto this here template to sell a copy. All Nintendo Switch games look like this, art with an eyesore in the corner. All GameCube games look like this, art with love handles. All 3DO games look like this for some reason. All systems follow a template with their physical games and use specific containers so virginity doesn't spread. Many will probably say, Scott, that doesn't matter. Well, neither does life. Live with it. Sure, no single box art template excites me now. I've mellowed out over the years. But this stuff legitimately interests me. I love seeing the differences between packaging on each console, how you can represent an entire system's objectives and brand via a simple box with enough room for custom artwork to flourish. Making sure the packaging design of any product is clear enough to denote exactly what it's for is important. Using the logic of it doesn't matter basically means everything on a store shelf should be in a blank cardboard box. Who cares what's inside anyways? I just want to buy the PS4 Spider-Man. Well, that's a gun. So let's take a look at all the major consoles throughout history and rate their packaging templates, starting with the Magnavox Odyssey. I do like 7. Being the first game console ever, the Odyssey was a true revolution, offering different games by plugging in different cartridges with an asterisk after every word there. This means nothing to me. Let's move over to the Atari 2600, where they had a variety of different box art designs. There wasn't a true standard. Pretty much every game publisher had their own design templates for not only the boxes, but sometimes the cartridges as well. These are all Atari 2600 games. They're like snowflakes. It's hard to tell what game system many of these cartridges are for, which I think is one of the major reasons box art was sort of standardized across each console afterwards. Some of these games barely even mention the system, so this is what it's like to have a gluten allergy. Now, the Atari published games usually followed the same templates. However, they did change it up quite a bit over time. Colored borders with big art, colored borders with small art, silver borders with big art, silver borders with small art, and the cartridges themselves range from the same damn thing as the boxes to a thesis statement. The lack of consistency across not only Atari 2600 boxes, but pretty much most game consoles around this time definitely added to some confusion consumers faced when it came to video games. The fact that all of these games are for different consoles and you can barely tell was a problem. But the lack of consistency across the board wasn't really an issue when you got it in your home. Does it really matter that this Atari box looks different from this Atari box? No, because everybody just threw these boxes away. They were cardboard. It's not like you'd gain anything from keeping a box and living in the 70s. I will say though, the box art templates that allowed the artwork to shine while also clearly denoting that, yes, this is in fact a waste of time, are definitely the best, as these ones where 70% of the space is taken up by anything but the game in question are fans of the term not ideal. Imagine being surrounded by 10 inches of silver and saying, I matter. Either these game boxes didn't tell you what console the game was for, or it couldn't get enough of telling you what console the game was for. Something had to change, and who better than Sega to fuck up this good? The 8-bit era is upon us, out with the garbage cardboard boxes and in with Nintendo, you swine. The boxes for the NES followed a similar format to Atari's. Most of Nintendo's own offerings would use the same template, while third parties were left on their own. At the very least, each licensed game for the NES featured the distinct Nintendo logo and the Nintendo seal of quality, which makes it fairly obvious what system these are for. But Nintendo did follow a few templates themselves with their box art, most notably the black box games. See, there was a problem with a lot of Atari titles. You'd see this box and end up getting catfished. Nintendo had no shame with showing consumers exactly what the game was going to look like on the box itself, so many of their early titles for the console followed the black box template. Space-looking background, angled title, taken sprites from the game and cram them all together, genre. I mean, yeah, this is what a graphic in pinball looks like, but seeing this on its own does not make me think pinball. Some of these games just do not lend themselves well to the black box template. The sports games, arcade games, sure, those are easily understandable based on the one screenshot they use, but when you get to the funky shit like Clue Clue Land, white kids saw this box and said, Mom, that one. Nintendo actually kept using this format for a few titles, changing it up with a silver background for Metroid and Kid Icarus. But as time went on and the NES was more accepted by society and people sort of knew better what to expect from the games they bought, the black box template was no longer needed and we got some more elaborate designs. No clear template was used for a while outside of sometimes having a tagline in the corner or something. But then, they introduced the Nintendo Entertainment System header. It was red and small. Like ants. They finally got around to standardizing the look of NES games and boxes with this simple header. It only took them until people stopped giving a shit. This style of NES box art started being used around the time the Super Nintendo became a thing. Great. So NES boxes looked pretty inconsistent, but at least the cartridges are all in the same boat. I love the designs of these things. You have the little indent making it easy to pull off the shelf. They stand up well in multiple ways, making them a dream to store and not play. The labels are the perfect size, extending to the side, showing off the title, with many of the logos being big enough to be easy to read, but not too easy, thank God. These cartridge designs are fantastic. The boxes could have been a bit more standardized, but at the very least, it made way for some amazing art. And hey, if we want something that has the exact opposite strengths and weaknesses, let's check out the Sega Master System, my best nightmare. So, this is innovative, a plastic case. The cardboard boxes may have been more cost effective, but everybody just chucked those in the trash once they plucked the game out. The Master System's boxes were hard plastic, with places to store the game and instruction manual, making people realize, oh God, I have responsibilities. It's time to take care of your games. Put them up on the shelf, keep them in a safe container. It'll keep it safe, I swear. In regards to the plastic case, the Master System truly innovated. Everything else, where do I begin? The general format of the Master System's box art was graph paper, blue text, clip art, you're welcome. This doesn't feel like a video game, this feels like homework. And then when we pop the box open and look at the cartridge design, they go to all this trouble of extending the label off to the side, but they don't write the name of the game on it? What's the point of the label extending then? As time went on, many Master System games had more elaborate box art while still maintaining the general aesthetic, though in other regions the box art template would sometimes vary. That's the thing, based on where you are in the world, they'd oftentimes have different templates for the game cases. I mean, over in Japan, the Japanese equivalent to the NES, the Famicom, was just a giant color and shape mystery show in terms of what the boxes and cartridges looked like. But with the introduction of the Game Boy, things were finally starting to become standardized. This is a Game Boy game box in North America and Europe, featuring a fat sidebar denoting Game Boy. The sides of the cardboard box were generally just the game in question's logo. The Game Boy boxes may have been pretty basic, but they got the job done and were incredibly effective. As years went on, it was becoming less and less ideal to just have whatever you felt like denote what system your game was for on the box. Sure, NES games would always say, this is for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but it would normally be in a completely different spot each and every time. As more and more systems were coming out, you had to be clear as day what system your game was for. In Japan, Game Boy boxes were slightly different, but were generally labeled as Game Boy in the corner. I mean, they weren't as loud as they were over here. The Game Boy logo is so big on our boxes, it's like they were expecting consumers to refuse to believe this was on Game Boy?
No, this can't be!
Moving on to the Sega Genesis, they kept with the plastic cases the Master System had, go them. And instead of regular graph paper, they inverted it. Absolutely classic looking boxes here. The black background feels so Genesis. The white background of the Master System boxes felt so out of place, like they just spun a wheel and decided, yep, that's what we're doing today. Not only does the coloring fit the tone of the Genesis, but we get much more fleshed out artwork for some games, unlike the singular PNG of many Master System ones. Here's my problem though. While this template was pretty standardized across the library, it wasn't standardized. Various games, even Sega published ones, used completely different templates, sometimes having full spreads of artwork across the spine. Even the games that used the same templates didn't follow them one-to-one. The Sega Genesis logo changes size and placement constantly. The size of the artwork on the front is different on various games. The placement of the UPC code is always up in the air. It's not a big deal. It's incredibly easy to tell what's a Genesis game and what's not. It's just weird they'd set a template for Genesis boxes, but wouldn't follow it 100%. Now, at least most of the cartridges are pretty in line with each other, except for the ones done by Electronic Arts. Those look completely different. And balls. It's a long story as to why some companies made different looking Genesis cartridges, even when they were officially endorsed by Sega themselves. To sum it up, basically, some companies, specifically EA, wanted a better licensing agreement when it came to releasing their games on the Sega Genesis. Sega basically told them, what are you gonna do, reverse engineer the Genesis and find a way to make your own game cartridges so you can release as many Genesis games as you want without our involvement? Guess what happened? Sega didn't want to lose out on the profits with these companies and reluctantly gave them their seal of approval, and that's why some Genesis games have a tart yellow mole. After a while, Sega introduced a new style of Genesis packaging, this one taking cues from the Game Boy boxes, featuring a large banner on the side denoting, guess who? This new style was red all over, and I do quite like it. While the black boxes are far more endearingly retro, these simply look really nice. Like ants. The tone of red color and stripes change a bit between boxes alongside the Genesis logos, but these look really cool next to each other until they cheaped out. Later in the Genesis's life, Sega opted out of the plastic cases and went with cardboard. Are you kidding me? While they feature the same red template, this is an obvious downgrade in every way. Nintendo save me, you son of a bitch. The Super Nintendo game boxes were horizontal. Good. All SNES games had this large border around the box with just a ton of shapes that make sense. Here's a triangle, here's some squares, 16 dots. Sure, that's a cute reference to the Super Nintendo being 16 bits, but why this way? We also have the Super Nintendo logo that was barely used over here. It's supposed to represent the 4 face buttons, but this thing was so much more prominent in Europe and Japan. The SNES box template is iconic, but actually critically looking at it, man, this is odd. You have this giant slab of square covering up part of the artwork just to give some BS tagline. I like the look of it overall, like you know this is a Super Nintendo game, but it feels a lot more abstract than something like the Game Boy or Genesis's offerings. It feels like so much real estate is being taken up by just pure black and no artwork when they could have just had the Super Nintendo logo and that's it. Not to mention, they're still cardboard, which made them prime candidates to be trash. Now over in Europe, the boxes were far simpler, except they needed to make 100% sure Europeans knew this was the PAL version of the Super Nintendo games. Do you think they know where they live? And over in Japan, the Super Famicom boxes were, oddly enough, in a vertical orientation and had far more space to let the art flourish. Just a logo or two denoting it's a Super Famicom game. No where racing becomes an adventure anywhere in sight. But taking a look at the cartridges, these are terrible. European and Japanese games for the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom had no end labels, so putting them on a shelf, only God knows what these are. Thankfully, North American cartridges have end labels, and I've gone half a sentence without bitching, that won't do. I am not a fan of how small these labels are and the colors they chose for them. Nearly all Super Nintendo games have black labels with dark colored fonts. Couple that with how small these things are, and it's honestly really hard to read these things from only a small length away. Compare that to the NES games. All these labels are incredibly easy to read and they're the perfect size. I will gladly take the most likely to be the first person to bitch about the SNES N labels award, thank you. Game Gear. Well, you got this Master System-like design, then a staircase design, and then you got this Genesis-like one, and that's all I'm willing to say about the Game Gear. What the hell is this, 3DO? Why is this packaging 3 times taller than a regular CD case? They don't even take advantage of the fact this thing is county size. The 3DO logo is just this tiny thing in the corner. They stacked a manual above the disc for no reason. At least you'll know 100% this is a 3DO game. If the sun is blocked, well, you know what Target started selling. Now, this is just one form of 3DO packaging. There was another where the game would come in a standard CD jewel case inside a box the size of this thing. What is this? Oh, yeah, fucking pointless. Game companies believed they had to make their packaging as large as possible to attract customers, especially over here in North America. So when games started appearing on CDs, they had to overcompensate. Discs. You ever have older people say to you, man, nobody uses these things anymore. Why, somebody your age probably doesn't even remember this. I'm 12, not 8. The Sega CD add-on for the Sega Genesis used these piles of human garbage, and they aren't even people, which is impressive. So these cases are kinda cool, but they feel so fragile. They're so big with not much inside to really keep it all together if you drop it or something. Sure, standard CD cases are sort of fragile too, but at least they're easy to replace. Who has 4 of these in their car at all times? The design here is very much supposed to replicate the red Genesis boxes, except this time being blue. They still do have that annoying thing where the Sega CD logo is off-centered on a few games, and not all of them use this casing. Earlier titles used cardboard boxes with a standard-sized jewel case inside. What? If Sega was so forward-thinking with the plastic cases for cartridges, why did they use cardboard boxes for CDs? I mean, sure, they came in a jewel case inside, but still. And then when Sega decided to actually use these bulky-ass fragile cases for Sega CD games, why did they decide to shift back over to cardboard for Genesis? And when they released the 32X add-on, why did they only use cardboard for that? I mean, again, the design here is just like the other ones, except yellow, but why was the Doom box the only one to print the 32X logo upside down? The cartridges are terrible. I mean, they look edible and they have no end labels. That makes it even more confusing as to why they went with cardboard boxes for 32X. I mean, with Genesis, I'd say most people kept their cases because they were hard plastic and those you could just put on the shelf like a book, being able to see which game is which by the spines. If anything, the Genesis games didn't need end labels because you had the cases, but now that you have these containers most people just threw away, that's when you don't use end labels? When people are more likely to have the cartridge and nothing else? But yeah, the Sega CD cases. Boo. They aren't terrible, but I always feel like they're about to fall apart. I do like using the cover art as a manual. That's incredibly resourceful and something CD-based games would usually do all the time. Overseas, the Sega CD, or Mega CD over there, use standard CD-sized cases, which is what makes the most sense. But making sense doesn't make sense in the video game industry now, does it? Even the PlayStation started things off weirdly. The initial batch of games would come in long boxes. Either they were the exact same thing as the Sega CD cases, or they were this weird plastic case with the artwork glued on top. And the spines. why is the word PlayStation in this direction? Now, they did end up updating things to just standard jewel cases, and these are just so much more logical. You can easily replace the cases, the design is incredibly simple, but it looks nice. And over in Japan, they had the logo in any corner they pleased, and in Europe, they put the banner on the bottom and made the cases buff as shit. I mean, the PlayStation box art sort of ripped off the original Game Boy box art, but everything comes together quite well here in my opinion. And the Sega Saturn's just off there doing its thing. Yup, the exact same case was used as the Sega CD. Still overly large, still pretty fragile. I mean, these are kinda cool, but I'm looking at these from a practicality point of view, and there is none. The Sega Saturn case designs are white with a logo that looks like it was made in Kid Pix 3D. It really does show how they were trying to push how the Sega Saturn is 3D, guys, we swear. It's not bad looking, though it's obviously aged more than the PlayStation packaging design and even the Sega CDs. And it especially looks outdated when we compare it to the Japanese Sega Saturn cases. Standard jewel cases, classy logo, it's got it all. The European style is most similar to the North American packaging, though they went for a black aesthetic. Isn't it odd to see how things change like this between regions for seemingly no reason? Especially the cases. Now, I may not be fond of the long-form clear plastic ones, but they are gods compared to what Europe got. Cheap plastic that barely held anything, let alone air. At that rate, I would have almost preferred going back to simple cardboard boxes. I said almost. The Nintendo 64 was still using disposable packaging, showing how even when it was an innovative console, in many regards, it was stuck in the past. These are very similar to the Super Nintendo's boxes, same dimensions and everything, though the new design is more colorful and less obtrusive. Way more room for the art, and I do like how most games have differently colored sides, representing the colors of the N64 logo. Of course, Nintendo was getting antsy to tell everybody what was only available on their platforms at the time. This started on the Super Nintendo with this giant magma leak, and with this fucking disgusting font on Super Metroid's box. Here on 64, it's just a simple curl of a page, which is cute. But when we take out the cartridge, why is this even a problem? Why did they get rid of the N labels? The differences between regions on N64 are similar to that of the Super Nintendo. Europe has a larger border and weirdly makes it look like they took most of the North American art, shrunk it, and put another border around it. Okay. And like the Super Famicom, the N64's Japanese box art was vertically oriented with a small N64 logo in the corner. See, that's what's weird. Either the box art template is huge because they just didn't trust consumers having problem-solving skills, or it's so small it's nearly non-existent. Take, for example, the Nintendo 64's disk drive add-on, the 64DD. These games are in proprietary jewel case-like packaging, and what denotes them as 64DD exclusives is a spot the difference. No wonder now when games on specific versions of consoles are released, they have to make 10,000% sure people know the difference. Virtual Boy! What do you want me to say? The North American boxes are weird. I guess the background's supposed to represent retinas. It's all red and blue, and the game cartridges all use the same background art and have this very specific dust cover. The Japanese ones, for some reason, replicate the North American Game Boy style packaging. Was not expecting that. Let's retaliate by not discussing any further. The Game Boy Color packaging was pretty much a repeat of the original Game Boys, except this time doing the whole Sega Saturn thing of using Kid Pix. Other than that, they're the same thing, except of course in Japan where they ripped off the PlayStation 1 box art. See, it's all coming full circle. The Dreamcast was an odd one. Of course, standard CD cases, but the design of the boxes, we have some with a white curve and a triangle representing the look of the Dreamcast console itself, with the Sega Dreamcast logo as far as humanly left as it could be. Then we have these black ones. No triangle, smaller curve, and these ones have the Dreamcast logo on the curve itself. I believe the black cases came to be the standard later in the system's life. I initially thought a black game represented that this game is for far more mature audiences, and then I saw Chicken Run had it and reacted accordingly. Remember these double pack cases? PS1 had these as well. They were always for games with more than one disc, and for some reason they decided to give the game 2 spines. And at least this way it blends into your collection quite well instead of just having a thicker case. But I don't have 2 Shenmues, damn it. Practicality wise, these are terrible. Both of the Dreamcast box art designs are pretty alright, though I would have preferred if they took one or the other and not switch over to black halfway through. And for some reason, I just always feel weird when the templates use a very strong curve like this. It just feels like it cuts off more of the art this way, I guess. In Europe, oh my god, what system is this for? Not only do we have the Dreamcast logo on the left, but also taking up 90% of the top. In Japan, Dreamcast games were the size of North American ones, but came with these paper covers for the spines. Great. That's kind of cool. It makes you feel like these are more premium, but makes it far easier for a Japanese Dreamcast game to be incomplete when you buy one. You have to sound like an idiot telling the seller, well, I'm not buying it without the spine hat. It's completely pointless. Japanese Sega Saturn games had these as well, and they just make it more difficult to keep your games 100% all together. There's a simple little Dreamcast logo in the corner, which is something I'm sure you've noticed Japanese games do a lot. Just a simple logo in the corner. Nothing crazy, they respect your intelligence. Overseas? Do you think they get it? PlayStation 2 games. I never really cared for how these looked. Now, functionally, they're fine. They get the job done perfectly. I just always felt they looked really cheap. I don't really care for how the spines look. That white box for the PlayStation logo looks like they went on Google Images, thought the image was transparent, and went, whoops, f*** it. They basically took the standard PlayStation box, turned it into a DVD case, brought the logo to the top, called it a day. They do have a spot for the memory cards, which is nice. I never use this. Outside of that holster, these are pretty much just standard DVD cases. Makes it really easy to replace these things, while also making them feel sort of cheap and generic. Well, at least Europe has our back. But do they, though? The PlayStation 2 logo here is bigger for some reason. Is there really a reason for it to be this way? Was this box just not clear enough that it was for PlayStation 2? It's not even bigger by an obvious amount. So why is it bigger in the first place? And the entire case is blue. Of course it is. I mean, blue is kind of part of the PS2's brand. The original box was blue, and that's it. But is that really a good reason to go with a blue box? This matches nothing, and why do the spines look like this? It looks unfinished. And all European PlayStation 2 games are like this. Now, I do enjoy consistency with spines, but I like it when the consistency remains consistent with the brand. What are they trying to say with this? Why is the case blue, the logo bigger, and the spine white with bold Arial text? And then for the budget re-releases, I mean, I already have a problem with those, but for the PlayStation 2 in Europe, oh my god. So now the case is silver, the logo's silver, spine is black with silver text. Now, this looks better than the standard cases, but I'm still appalled how it looks next to a standard game. In Japan, they followed the format of the North American games. Thankfully, though, for their budget releases, they changed the out of the colors for some reason. Gold, yellow with silver cases. Can you believe these are all for the same console? Game Boy Advance followed a very similar format to previous Game Boy box art, though Japan's take was more like miniature Super Nintendo boxes. Here overseas, cardboard, label on the left, the sides of the box just have the game's logo. This time the banner is rounded and almost looks like stainless steel, and one thing I always found peculiar about these boxes is the only for triangle, denoting that this is an exclusive game you can only play on Game Boy Advance. That's good to know, and lots of systems have that on their games. The thing is, pretty much every Game Boy Advance game said this. Games that also released on consoles still said only for Game Boy Advance. Why? I assume because in terms of handheld versions of said game, yeah, it was the only one. That's why for games that also released on the N-Gage, they couldn't say only for. Let's talk about that, f*** it, I have time. The N-Gage was Nokia's cell phone handheld game console hybrid. You could use it as a phone, but why would you do that when you could play games on it? But why would you do that when you could use it as a phone? I should just stop doing. The games came in. Oh my god, a plastic case for handheld games? This is incredible. It's a nice size, protects the game quite well. I think using a plastic case for your games really does wonders to making it feel more premium. It feels like an actual game, while in comparison, Game Boy Advance games felt like a cheap thrill. Just throw away the packaging like a toothbrush, who cares? It has an interesting banner design on the front and spine. The silver case looks nice, and on the inside, there is so much room for activities. 2 slots for games, and it comes with a carrying case that holds 4 more games. Why did they do this? I have no idea. I mean, 2 slots, that makes sense, but including a whole ass carrying case for 4 more games? Why not just 4 more game card slots? Whatever. The big problem though is the game card holder. It is so tight, you just can't pop the game out. If I do, then I almost feel like I'm gonna snap the card in half. No, you have to pull these things apart with 2 fingers and then use a 3rd finger to wiggle the game out. This is a 3-finger job. Now moving on to the GameCube. Fellas, I think I found it. I think this is my favorite video game packaging of all time. It's perfect. So first up, this game case as a whole, rock solid. So many other cases I come across are cracked and have pieces missing. They're basically falling apart. Hell, brand new games that just released, half the time when I open up the package, there's like a solid 60% chance there's gonna be broken plastic in the box. The disc spindle is broken, the manual holder is out of commission. It's a mess. Game boxes nowadays are so cheap, but the GameCubes, I have yet to find a single box that's broken like that. banner is so nice looking, so sleek and cool. Sure, it is curved, but it isn't like the Dreamcast, which is basically half a damn circle. This is very subdued, a slight curve. I don't feel like it's in the way of any of the art, and if it's an exclusive, the only for label is the same as the Game Boy Advances. It's not obtrusive, it looks good, I love it. And then we go to the spine. Why is the GameCube logo on the bottom? An interesting choice for sure. I mean, pretty much every game box I know of has the console's logo on the top, but I'm okay with this change. It's probably because I grew up with the GameCube and I'm used to it, but it doesn't look out of place and is kind of a cool change of pace. But hey, if you prefer your console's logo on the top of the spine, just move to Europe. This looks wrong to me. But then if we look at the Japanese GameCube boxes, man, they were living a completely different life from us. These boxes are tiny. They just have a simple GameCube logo in the corner. There's this slip cover over a translucent case. I mean, no matter what, these things, at the very least, are neat. And hey, we got a taste of them over here. The Game Boy player adapter needed a disc to boot up, and that disc came in a Japanese GameCube box, no matter what region you were in. These things are cool, but they're just not as functional as the boxes overseas. The slipcover is the only way you're getting the full cover art, both front and back covers, as well as spines telling you what the hell you're playing. Without the slipcover, the manual is here to represent the cover art, but it's behind this super foggy plastic. And obviously this cardboard sleeve is gonna be more susceptible to wear and tear over the years and is more easily losable. While this is neat, I do feel like there were more efficient ways to go about this smaller packaging. That's right, Scott bitched about the Japanese GameCube boxes. Nothing's off limit. The original Xbox, just pure Mountain Dew green cases. It's pretty loud, but it fits with the image of Xbox. It's not like a blue case with a large banner and a white spine. I have been furious for the past 20 years. I think the Xbox boxes are what I would have preferred the PS2 boxes to look like. It has personality without being too loud and obnoxious while being functional as all hell. Though I find it odd that on the spine, if the game has Xbox Live Online support, they felt the need to label it as such on the spine. On the front cover, sure, I get that, but why the spine? Thankfully, when the Nintendo DS hit the scene, Nintendo wised up and gave us plastic cases for their handheld games, and this was a big deal to me. This made the DS feel like a home console on the go. Not only did it launch with Super Mario 64, but the games came in DVD-like cases, just like home consoles. And not only that, it had a power button, not some power switch. It had a button just like home consoles. That was honestly a really cool thing to me back then. Take it. Cheers. These boxes are great, though. It's interesting Nintendo basically reused the exact same format from the Game Boy Advance boxes, except this time making it white. There's also this ridge thing, so there you have it. Regardless, the DS library was consistent as consistency throughout the years. You put every DS game next to each other and they all look so in line, so perfect. Unless you bought some European games. Japan's boxes were the exact same as ours. Europe fills an entire room. Look at this, why are these so big? The front template's the exact same, the contents inside are the exact same. Why are these boxes 1.5 times bigger than the rest of them? I mean, the translucent style is cool. The side is entirely white with this little triangle at the bottom, which apparently indicates which PAL region this is from exactly. These aren't bad boxes on their own. I just have no idea why they chunked. And of course, the redesigned Nintendo DSi had its own boxes for exclusive games. Who doesn't know that? Yeah, there were only 6 Nintendo DSi retail games. Some games that had specific DSi features made the hell sure you knew on the box, but these games were only playable on the DSi. These are basically the same cases, though some are white and some are black. The DSi banner is actually just a flat square now. Still a ridge, wouldn't be a DS game without the ridge. And the game card itself is a lighter color. Oh, and the spine. Why did they do that? Why instead of a DSi logo did they just do the 2 squares? That just looks stupid. Guys, the DSi boxes are stupid. Karma doesn't exist. F these boxes. Well, Sony entered the portable market with the PSP, so obviously they couldn't use cardboard boxes. They didn't want to look like fucking idiots next to Nintendo. They changed the spine. The PSP boxes are small, thin, and translucent. It shares many elements with the PlayStation 2's box, which makes sense as when the PSP came out, the PS2 was totally relevant. That's something you see a lot. If a company makes a home console and a handheld, many times they'll try to create parity between the box art designs. Doesn't explain why they put a game controller on the banner. It's probably because they released physical movies for the system, UMD video for PSP. Pretty much, this is silver, this is not. That's your way to distinguish what's a movie and what's a game. I mean, it makes sense. You don't want to buy Spider-Man 2 when you meant to buy Spider-Man 2. Halfway through the PSP's life, they changed up the box style. This is way more in line with how later PS3 games looked, but for some reason they decided to cut the banner on the spine in half. I'm all for freeing up space for the art, though I don't like it when they do that halfway through a game system's life, and thus now my PSP games look weird next to each other. Was that really a request from the PSP fandom? More spine? Changing up the box art template was a major problem during this time. Look no further than the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. The 360 easily was the least offensive of the two. Most 360 games look pretty alright next to each other, but it's just the little things that stick out. The initial run of 360 games had see-through green cases, and this design with some thin green stripes. We see this on the banner and on the spine. Then around 2010, they introduced this new design featuring a large green strip on the banner and a fully white background for the logo on the spine. Of course, if it was a game that required Kinect, we got a purple case and the banner changed slightly, but the spine looks the same. And then around 2013, we have this new one, where the Xbox symbol is slightly different. How dare they? As time went on, they cheaped out with the cases. What once was translucent is now something that's a bit more in line with the original Xbox cases. Also, for games that used multiple discs, if they're just trying to cut costs, they don't even include a flap or something. They do this thing where they just stack the discs. But that wasn't as offensive as when they made 3 games you could only get at Burger King. They worked on the original Xbox and Xbox 360, so they gave them Xbox 360 cases but just said Xbox on them. Remember this. The PlayStation 3 had fun life. We got 3 different types of box art. This is my hell. So they kind of went back to the PS1 style with this template, the banner on the side. It's not great. This original logo reeks of Spider-Man. It is the Spider-Man font after all. The spine is odd as it's red and the PS3 logo is oriented like this, but hey, look at this case. These are a bit annoying as they are completely proprietary to the PlayStation 3. You can't use DVD cases or even Blu-ray cases because these covers won't fit. But the cases do look cool, and the revised PS3 art later on, I think, looks far better. It makes the PS3 games look classy and sophisticated. The Xbox 360 games look like a drink flavor at Taco Bell. Nothing wrong with that, but these just look more premium. But then for some reason they decide to update it again after the PS4 came out. Why? This one has a slightly smaller banner and it's all this bluish color. Okay, I get parity between handhelds and home consoles, but why would you want to make your last generation system look more similar to your current generation one? Don't you want to make it crystal clear which games are for what system? Why would you want to make it more similar like this? This obviously didn't work out, as only a few PS3 games featured this style. They did go back to the second revision. God, my year is saved. But there was one more style of PS3 game that was pretty eye-grittingly annoying. PlayStation Move titles. If a game had PlayStation Move support in some way, not even requiring it, just if it had it as an option, there's this giant PlayStation Move bubble on the front and on the spine. This just looks dumb. Again, just like the original Xbox stuff. I get it being on the front, albeit it's very large, but why the spine? Now the Wii. The Wii. How I love this system's box art style. The fully white design, white case, and the white spine. The banner is so unique, but it works. I love this template. Why did some companies f it up? I mean, when it's a cute big event like New Super Mario Bros. Wii, that was neat to have this fully red box. It sticks out, but kind of in a fun way. When pretty much all of LucasArts titles have a yellow spine for no reason, that's when I've had enough! There are a few games that like to make their spines different for whatever reason. NBA Jam, Twilight Scene, the 2 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. But for the vast majority of the Wii library, this looks nice. And then Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles forgot the Wii logo on its spine, but just don't buy it and you won't have that issue. Also, there were the console pack-in games that came bundled in with Wii systems. These were annoyingly in cardboard sleeves. Thankfully, most got full-blown releases in plastic cases, but Link's crossbow training was f***ed from day one. Other regions were pretty much the same, but in Japan they started giving games aimed towards older players black boxes because sure. The 3DS had very similar style boxes, fully white with a white spine. They differentiated these from DS boxes by, get this, moving the logo to the right. It's not rounded anymore either. These are completely different, are they not? The boxes are also a bit thinner than normal DS boxes, especially if they're from Europe. You could fit a boat in this. I really do like these ones, though the spines, well, they're fine. I don't like how Nintendo constantly flip-flopped between generic fonts and actual logos. It's just weird how some games have just words and others have the actual logos. Now later on, Nintendo released the new 3DS, being slightly more powerful. Some games were exclusive to this model, so they needed their own packaging. I have been waiting for this day for years. It's time to bitch about the new 3DS box art. So, basically, Nintendo's idea of not confusing consumers is to cover a new side of a square they haven't been to yet. We got left, right? Let's go for the top. These boxes look so awkward. Like, the banner is a bit bigger in an already small box, so the artwork looks claustrophobic. And you know, with how much video game companies love effing with the spines of their boxes for no reason, it surprises me how similar new 3DS games look to regular ones. And most 3DS games have this little disclaimer on the box, plays in 2D and 3D, some games only play in 2D. Weirdly enough, not all boxes have this disclaimer. And it's not even random third-party games that don't have it. Some Nintendo-published stuff doesn't have it either. The spines of these boxes have this cute little icon, which I like. Pop the game in the system, and that's the icon on the menu. Oh, that's a dumb attention to detail I enjoy. Now, I'm not a fan of when the icon is just the game's actual logo with its title. It just seems kind of redundant when the title and logo is already on the spine. These may not be perfect boxes, I do have some quarrels with them, but they're pretty good. Until 2017. Oh, boy, okay, so 2017 was when the Nintendo Switch launched, and Nintendo changed up their branding. They changed to a white Nintendo logo on a red background. A little weird that this is the official logo officially. They decided to change how their published games look on 3DS around then, and every Nintendo published game on 3DS after the Nintendo Switch launched had the mark of the beast. What the hell is this? Who thought this looked good? Not only does this clash with the all-white spines, but it looks weird next to any other 3DS game, especially old Nintendo published ones. Nintendo would always put their logo down here horizontally. Now it's vertical and covered in red. And they made a lot of 3DS games that looked like this. My 3DS library looked pretty great up until when Nintendo started to do this, and my entire life was fine until Nintendo started to do this. The Wii U library. Okay. This is my bread and butter. This is a fun one. Wii U games combine the Wii, GameCube, 3DS, and whatever other shapes were in Nintendo's mind at the time. So the front, okay, thanks. This is the same as the GameCube template. It's the exact same. I love the GameCube art, but not because it's blue and yellow, because it's not. I remember cheap fan-made Wii U box art renders that were literally just the Wii template but flipped around. I think the official Darksiders 2 Amazon page used that for a second even. But then this was revealed when Assassin's Creed 3 blew its load and updated its store page with this box art, and man, I've never been the same since. So I'm fine with the blue and white look, but why a yellow trim? Why not make that trim white or make the header white and make the trim blue? Why this? The Wii U disc art has a header that looks like this. Why doesn't the box do this too? And why mimic the GameCube's box art design? Bless the GameCube's heart, but it was one of Nintendo's worst performing consoles at the time. So what do? You replicate its box art? I'm not saying this is why the Wii U failed, but they were kind of asking for it at this point. The spine has a ridge from the header extend over, which is cute, but it looks kind of off when you have a bunch of Wii U games together. Especially since a lot of the covers aren't going to be 100% aligned perfectly. You know, they shift around a bit in that case. So games will always look off-centered when a bunch are on the shelf. The same icon style from the 3DS is used, and the actual game titles, I have the exact same problem I did with 3DS games. And then a few games had some odd quirks. Now, similar to the Wii, in Japan, more mature-oriented titles were given a black case with a darker Wii U logo. For some reason, here in North America, 2 Wii U games used a black spine and nothing more, Resident Evil Revelations and Deus Ex Human Revolution. No other games did this. They're both from different publishers, and while they're both mature-rated games, they weren't the first or last mature games on Wii U. So what, did they want to do something like what they did in Japan and give mature games a black case but gave up after these games? Or did both of these games randomly want to use a black spine for no reason? Star Fox Guard has a cream-colored spine. I haven't graduated yet because I can't finish this essay. New Super Luigi U has a green case with green Wii U artwork, and much like New Super Mario Bros. Wii, I'm cool with this. It's more of a fun little event than an annoyance. But then Wii Sports Club forgot the blue ridge at the top. That is the definition of not a fun little event. European Wii U games had a blue spine, but it was white where the Wii U logo is. I may have found my least favorite thing. The PS Vita cases. These are adorable. They're so small I question if these things should even exist. I love when we get custom-sized boxes like this. Seriously, you don't see plastic cases the size of this for anything else. It's great. We have a blue-styled banner and spine. Very basic, but effective. And this was what would eventually be the standard for the PlayStation 4. These are pretty good-looking boxes, I'm not gonna lie. Very basic, but they didn't change it up too much. It just looks good when a bunch of PS4 games are together. There is this big-ass PlayStation VR logo on the spine if the game supports PSVR. It not even requires it, much like PlayStation Move games on PS3. Why does this need to be on the spine? And why do some games that even heavily use the PSVR not have this sometimes? The initial releases of Resident Evil 7 didn't have this on the spine, but it did on the cover. Also, another complaint, PS4 game cases are disappointingly fragile. I've seen so many with chunks taken out of the sides, it's really lame. But you know what isn't really lame? The Xbox One cases.
I have officially lied once today.
So the concept of these are pretty neat. Let's make the banner a part of the actual case. Much like the PS3 cases, this makes it much harder to just buy cheap replacement cases, but they do look kind of cool. My problem with them though, the fact the logo is painted on means it's more likely the banner is going to look slightly off. It may not be colored properly, the paint may chip off. It's a cool idea to have the banner not be a part of the artwork, but it doesn't really affect things much, especially when they end up putting an Xbox One banner on the bottom of some games anyway, so I don't really understand the reason for either one of these things at this point. The spine is fully gray with a logo, sure. And why is the disc on the left side of the packaging? How have we never gotten answers for this? Microsoft's done tons of different things with the Xbox One cases, mainly different styles of telling people why they should buy an Xbox One, but also re-releasing Xbox 360 games that are backwards compatible with the Xbox One. So many 360 games got re-released in Xbox One-like cases, but these aren't specifically Xbox One cases, they're Xbox cases, like from Burger King. These are simply 360 games. They aren't remastered versions on an Xbox One disc. They'll still work on a normal 360, but also play on an Xbox One because they are literally the Xbox 360 discs. They have two logos on the banner, and on the side they just say Xbox. Sometimes the disc says Xbox One and Xbox 360, and other times it's just the original Xbox 360 disc. My thing with these is, where do I put them? Do I put them with the Xbox One games or do I put them with the 360 games? They're literally just 360 games. They just reprinted them with modern Xbox branding. But they initially didn't put all of them in Xbox One cases. Here's Fallout 3, My Eyes. So you're gonna use a 360 sized case but design the packaging to look like an Xbox One's. This fits nothing. You put this with your 360 games, this looks stupid. You put this with your Xbox One games, this looks stupid. They actually re-released this game in the normal Xbox One packaging, which looks way better, and I'll be 100% honest here. These are cool little oddities. Like, these may not be remastered Xbox 360 games for the Xbox One, but it's still cool to see them in an Xbox One style case. But I feel this packaging may be a bit misleading, and many may assume these are remastered Xbox One versions of 360 games. I mean, look here, Rayman Legends released for Xbox One, but it also came out on 360. So they decided to re-release Rayman Legends for 360 in an Xbox One case. The 360 version runs on Xbox One, but it's officially not the Xbox One version. Confused? These are different versions. I like some of the ideas with the Xbox One cases, but overall, this is a mess. Well, we've officially trudged over to the Nintendo Switch. These boxes are so neat. They're like the PSP boxes, but thinner and beet red. It seems that Nintendo has finally taken the Japanese template style of a simple logo in the corner and standardized it across all regions. It may not be the most exciting, but it's easy to identify. It fits the rest of the Switch branding, and it leaves more room for the art to stretch its legs. The spines are completely red with a small Switch logo, standardized font, and the name of the publisher. I like these. However, everything being red and having the same font makes it harder to identify certain games from far away. Like with the PS4, it's pretty easy from this distance to see which games are which. The Switch, you almost need to be right next to them. I can appreciate the consistency, but being too consistent does make things harder to distinguish. As cool as a bunch of Switch games look together, I still prefer the PS4 style personally. Also, that standardized font apparently isn't a requirement. A small handful of publishers use their own logo or font, and my god is it putrid. Come on guys, just use the standard Switch font. Why did Super Bomberman R and Binding of Isaac need to use their own dumb font? Why did Battle for Bikini Bottom use a different font? It's not even SpongeBob related. They just used a different font to use a different font. That takes more work. If you're gonna do this, at least go out with a bang like the other ones I showed. This is just a generic font. Why not just use the regular Switch font? Nintendo Labo games have black spines, which I'm fine with. They're such unique titles in the library, I think it's cool to separate them like this. And European games are pretty much the same, but the title on the spine is centered and uses a different font, because Europe wouldn't be the same without that. Now the PlayStation 5 packaging is stupid. I've become more accepting of it over time, but it feels weak. It's the same as the PS4's, but with a white banner instead. It uses a blue case, which I get why. The PS5 is white with a blue light, but I think it would have looked better to make it a fully white case or a black case or a clear plastic case and then represent the blue by making that the color of the line at the bottom of the banner. It works, but using a blue case feels like they're just using old PS4 game case stock, and the overall design, I'm just not crazy about it. And the Xbox cases look the damn same. They just say Xbox now, woo. Ah! I finally shut off my hospital gown. I'm cured! And all it took was doing dear god anything but playing video games. The box art template and game packaging as a whole is just flat out interesting to me. And while I went on and even on about how consistency is key here, it's almost beautiful how consistently inconsistent these things are. It keeps things interesting, and if everything was perfect, well, I don't know what I would have done for the past 45 minutes. But spending your time wisely is important, and apparently doing this was all for the better of society. Karma does exist, and it cured me by talking about game packaging. So apparently, it loves when you talk about game packaging. As long as you don't talk shit on the DSi boxes. Hey y'all, Scott here. I need a bath. Good timing, I haven't had one yet this year. Problem is, I only do what Space Invaders does. My diet is beyond limited. Lucky for the bath fan inside of me, I have no excuse. See, marketers have discovered there's no Venn diagram between bath fans and gamers. It's just a circle. It was inevitable. Mankind knew things were heading this way ever since air was invented. Xbox shampoo. Technically, you can use it on your body and face as well, so it is multi-purpose. I think a better term for it is Xbox skin jelly. I assume the audience for this is people who have never bathed before, but love Xbox, and according to my research, I just can't see them existing. You know, there were a couple of other products a part of this Xbox grooming line, all exclusive to Australia. I forgot. So we've got this Space Invader soap, so we already know I'm gonna smell fucking delicious, but I can use these in the shower, not just a bath. So I'll introduce some bath exclusives. I just prefer them. With a bath, you have a moment to say hi to whoever walked in. The Mario Bath Time Golf Set. No shower instructions are included. See, this does satiate one of my primal urges. God, I wanna play fucking golf. Not only do we get golf tools, but Mario Body Wash is included. But what if I don't give a shit about Luigi in the tub? Well, we've got the Sonic Bath Bubbles bath game. See, I was on the fence about bathing, but now I don't think you could pay me to leave. This is a bathtub. I bought this one at the convention. I mainly used it to store my soap, but I never had a chance to use my soap because I never had a place to bathe. That changed today. Man, this bathtub could be more comfortable. Could use some hay. Let's start with the Xbox shampoo, coming to us from Lynx, after I try my Beats headphone soup. It's the Xbox staple green, which makes me happy there's no Nintendo Switch variant. Basically, it allows Xbox on your head like never before. At the end of the day, solid shampoo, no real downsides outside of hair loss. Avoid contact with eyes. What's your stance on lips? Well, let's clean up all this soap. So I got soap here. Space Invaders soap. Huh. I played Space Invaders. I gotta bathe. If skin irritation persists, consult your doctor. Oh no, I know how it works. You lure me in with skin irritation just to end up diagnosing me with cancer. Just let a bather bathe. There's lots of gaming themed soaps. I've seen game cartridge themed bars which look damn near identical to the actual products. That's good. I am most critical in the shower. The Space Invader soap is neat, but only for that brief moment before you use it. Like what, you mean you don't want to rub this on your ass? Also, the outline isn't even a part of the soap. What is this? This isn't soap, it's a shape! Okay, I need to calm down. Maybe a relaxing bath bubbles bath game will ease the soap rant, because I can go all goddamn day. This Sonic the Hedgehog bath game is based on Sonic Adventure and involves trying to get these rings on the pegs. I had a couple of these water-based handheld games as a kid, but from what I remember, they never lasted. They always stopped working a while in, whether that was because of water leaking or God making sure we always have something to go to war over. I don't know, but I can tell the last owner had fun with it. The entire bag has been peeled off. Well, I can't be too clean in the tub. I've waited long enough. For the first 3 years of my life, I couldn't play Bath Time Golf Set. Back then, I even tried to get the cashier to card me while buying it. I am feeling pretty underage today. But now that I'm 24, I can finally responsibly use this. Set up the putting greens, hit the ball in. It's downhill from here. Yeah, what's your return policy? No, I got the hole-in-one. I don't need the tub anymore. In the end, I don't really need baths. Did you know using body spray eliminates your need for showers? Hey y'all, Scott here. Ever seen one of these? Nostalgia. You may be interested to know how that, alongside the other 84 letters of the alphabet, came to be. Well, I don't mean to brag, but let's just say I couldn't ethically the inventor of the alphabet. That's right, my great uncle Ed. That's where the letter E came from. He invented letters. Why did he do it? Well, he was getting frustrated at not being able to name things.
Mr. Bones! It's Mr. Bones!
Why? What? When? How? We can't escape it. We all have to refer to a video game by its title at some point. You can only get so far without it.
Give him rats.
So far is pretty damn far. That just shows how important a good title is, because without it, I would have no goddamn idea what this game was about. Titles are oftentimes conglomerates of words that sound nice together, but ultimately make no sense when you analyze them. Elden Ring? Nah, old circle. But we're so used to how games are titled now that we don't think twice about a game called Concrete Genie. Huh. Naturally. So let's start by analyzing these things and how the most popular game series of all time's name makes no damn sense. Super Mario Brothers. What just came out of my mouth? Dad? Platforming game starring brothers Mario and Luigi, but Mario is obviously the main star. Luigi only comes into play when playing multiplayer, and they're super because 1, the game before this one was titled Mario Brothers, and 2, the Super Mushroom power-up transforms them into Super Mario and Super Luigi. So the title doesn't necessarily make any sense, it's just a checklist. So it's no wonder they dropped the Brothers moniker a bit in. Retroactively, Nintendo did confirm that Mario and Luigi's last name is Mario. God, f their parents. But I don't think they thought that far ahead when titling this game back in the 80s. Honest to God, this reads like a translation flub. After Super Mario Bros. 3, Nintendo started naming Mario titles Super Mario Blank, Super Mario Land, World, even spin-offs like Super Mario Kart. It's definitely an evolutionary step for a franchise. When enough people understand your series, you no longer have to worry about your title being anything elegant. It just has to get the job done. Oh, what's this? Mario Golf. When you have so many titles in a series, it becomes harder and harder to name each one something unique, making some titles interchangeable. Eventually, we got Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario 3D World. I mean, these do nothing to describe the actual games. It's Super Mario in a 3D land. Okay, well, what makes that so different from Super Mario in a 3D world? At that point, why wasn't the first 3D Mario game not titled something like this? And instead it was titled, and you fucking wonder why people don't take video games seriously, Super Mario 64, following a titling scheme of including the console the game is on in the title. It really helps answering that question. Give me a second. This can be something fairly mundane, like how many Super Nintendo games start with Super in the title. That means Super Punch-Out, Super Soccer, Super Metroid, all fine and good, but I mean, for a game as serious as Super Metroid with the title screen being decorated with corpses, Super feels a bit like it takes away from how serious the game can be and almost seems to dumb it down to simply being Metroid, but bigger. But it's such an iconic title in gaming that it just feels right. Super Castlevania 4 though, like, you already sold me. If they just called it Castlevania 4, fine. If they just called it Super Castlevania, fine. Super Castlevania would have made all the sense in the world, considering 4 is a bit of a retelling of the setup to the original Castlevania. But no, it reads as if there's some standard Castlevania 4 out there I don't know about. Oh, the name is available. The Castlevania series does have a fairly consistent titling method, usually going for the subtitle of Blank of Blank. Rondo of Blood, Symphony of the Night, Circle of the Moon. Oh, some of these actually sneak in some cute acronyms. Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow was the first Castlevania on the DS. Castlevania Harmony of Despair was released on the HD consoles at the time. Castlevania Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate, outside of being a prime example of 2 whole subtitles, both using the Blank of Blank format, released on the Nintendo 3DS, so Mirror of Fate kind of alludes to the illusion-filled screen on the portable, which a couple DS and 3DS games did a similar thing in their titles. But most of these are fine by me, even the ones that don't follow the format. Castlevania Bloodlines, I think about good names for vampire-based action games featuring distant relatives of characters from previous Castlevania games a lot. And this one's a close second. So it shocks me to see the series stoop to the low of this. Witness tampering. Castlevania. Just Castlevania. Is there anything special about this one? Like, is it a fresh start for the franchise? A reboot? A remake? No, it's just the first 3D Castlevania. Good for it. I got out of bed this morning, so I accomplished something too. Let's forget my dad was ever a thing. This is a scenario where the overused 64 subtitle for Nintendo 64 games would have been completely welcome. And in this case, most fans just end up calling the game Castlevania 64 because what else are you gonna call it? Well, yeah, but what system is it for? Nintendo 64 games, I feel like at least a third of the library must have 64 in the title. With Super Nintendo, using Super in the names at least worked both in the context of being a standalone title and a Super Nintendo game. What the hell does this number have to do with Donkey Kong? The use of 64 in these titles could oftentimes be confusing. It doesn't imply this is the series' big leap into 3D. Super Mario 64 sort of set the precedent, so with a game like Mega Man 64, I'm sure many fans thought, oh, this is Mega Man's next big step. My next big step is going to Denny's for the second night in a row. It's a port of Mega Man Legends from the PlayStation. Well, just call it Mega Man Legends, or if your fetish is that crippling, Mega Man Legends 64. Duke Nukem 64 was just the Nintendo 64 version of Duke Nukem 3D, but Doom 64 is an entirely unique entry in the Doom series, so much so that it received a modern remaster, yet many people always assumed it was just a port of the original Doom. But then you have Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. What's the point of the number here? You already have a subtitle. Putting 64 in the titles of these games almost feel like these companies were beckoning to fans who only had the Nintendo 64. Like, hey, finally, a Mega Man for you! But hey, at least 64 became an iconic number within the gaming community. It's so specific that when you put it in a title, people know what it means, and it definitely rolls off the tongue with a lot of these names. Monopoly for Nintendo Switch. Could you be more specific? This is a trend I will never fully understand. How some game titles do the For Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Switch Edition subtitle. I see this mostly on that console, but other systems aren't immune. 9 times out of 10, a game with For Nintendo Switch in the title isn't like super optimized for Nintendo Switch or has crazy unique features. It's the same as any other multi-plat version, and 9.5 times out of 10, it's a digital-only release, which means you can only find it by going on that system's specific storefront. No fucking shit. Oh, this is the Nintendo Switch Edition? Really? Nintendo gets this treatment the most. I mean, Yakuza 1 and 2 HD on PS3, Yakuza 1 and 2 HD for Wii U on Wii U. To be fair, they've done this themselves, most notably with Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS, but also with Super Mario Maker for Nintendo 3DS, Brain Training for Nintendo Switch, etc. In many ways, I don't blame them, as, Smash for Wii U and 3DS have the same characters and roughly the same gameplay, but there are some unique features on Wii U, like swimming and climbing ladders, different stages and modes across both games. They're different titles, but the same. So what else would you call them? But I think using the console's name in a video game title just goes to show how potentially lacking of character that specific game has. Damn, you're no nonsense today. The identity of this video game is that it's on a video game console. Sometimes I swear companies do this to mask what their game truly is. Rayman DS? It's Rayman 2. Rayman 3D? It's Rayman 2. Rayman Revolution? God damn, we get it. They're synonyms. Well, you think people are gonna buy these games because they think it'll be a completely new Rayman game? Judging on the back of Rayman DS and 3D make absolutely no mention of these being re-releases and how I keep buying copies of Rayman 3D thinking it's not Rayman 2. It's clear this is another case of titling trickery. I'd honestly say this is borderline false advertising. Like Power Punch 2. There ain't no Power Punch 1. Which shows just how good the sequel is if they jump straight to 2. So this game was originally developed as a sequel to Punch-Out!, but publisher Nintendo dropped out during production, so the developer just released it as their own original game, but since they didn't have the rights to the Punch-Out! Name, they renamed it to Power Punch and added a 2 to the mix, as I guess they still viewed it as a sequel. I mean, it just goes to show how powerful a number in a title can be with a sequel. You have a billion-ass Kingdom Hearts games released between Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3. Like, literally, there was a mainline Kingdom Hearts game released on the Nintendo 3DS in 2012, and 1 year later, people still lost their minds over Kingdom Hearts 3 being announced at E3 2013, as if it's been so long since the last Kingdom Hearts. But you know what just rubs me the wrong way? When a series flip-flops between using Roman numerals and standard numbers for sequels. Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden 2, and Ninja Gaiden 3. I hope the fourth one uses tally marks and is a part of the Black Ops series. It's that inconsistency that doesn't necessarily bother me, but just perplexes me. Like, why? Why are you like this? Especially when some games have subtitles and some don't. Like Resident Evil had this perfect string of sequel names. But then 3 just had to include Nemesis in the title. Hey, sometimes it's okay to stick out a little bit. And 3 thankfully wasn't the only one to do so. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. So they switched over to Roman numerals for this one, but it's all a part of the logo, highlighting the V, I, and part of the L in evil to make a 7. Then the subtitle Biohazard is actually the title of the Resident Evil franchise in Japan. So over there, the game is actually called Biohazard 7 Resident Evil, with the 7 coming out of the Z in Biohazard. Just everything about these titles and logos are so clever and cool. I love them. It is weird though that while the subtitle being Biohazard is great and all, it doesn't really make a ton of sense. For this specific game with this specific story, I'm not sure how well the term Biohazard represents it, as it's more of a cute nod to the series title in Japan rather than an effective subtitle. And also, even with the English logo using a Roman numeral, most official listings of the game give it a standard number 7. But then with the next Resident Evil game, it followed the same format, had the Roman numeral 8 in the logo. That's not a part of the official name. It's not Resident Evil 8 Village, it's just Resident Evil Village. Why is the logo like this then? It's like Horizon Forbidden West. They put this Roman numeral 2 right here, but never refer to it when talking about the game. Maybe it's a pause button. But these specific cases, I can live with. Well, not for an extended period of time. They don't irritate me, they just perplex me. Now, sequel titles that do irritate me, less so irritate, more so enable. Removing words from the franchise's name and following entries, I just don't like this. It feels cheap and tacky and lame. Like, the game producers are trying to get hip with the lingo. Oh, people just call our series Gears. Well, we do too. You know, Gears of War 5 takes the same amount of effort to say as Gears of War 2 does, and we were doing just fine back then. This makes Gears 5 feel more like a spin-off than the 5th main entry in the series. It oversimplifies the franchise down to one word, like this is the word for us. Gear? I think it would have stuck out more simplifying it down to of. At least with Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. I mean, that's more acceptable due to Zelda being a far more iconic word, a word unanimously used to refer to the Legend of Zelda franchise as a whole. But man, it still just doesn't feel right. This works better as an abbreviation for fans to use. Quick slang for your game title, not its legal name. At least it's still easy to follow, you know? Gears 5 is the 5th main entry, Zelda 2 is the 2nd main entry. The 3rd, well, f me then. Titlers love breaking from tradition to nab some attention. Now, sometimes a series changes for the better. Just Dance went from numbering the entries to just flat out labeling them by the year, which when your yearly music game series is basically just changing the song list with each entry, that's a good change to make. Dance Dance Revolution always felt the need to give each title something unique, but it just overcomplicates everything. Like most of these subtitles are synonyms. For some series, just putting the year at the end, it makes sense. Like with Madden. Nothing but consistency. Sure, they went from naming it John Madden Football to Madden NFL, going from abbreviations of years to full years, back to abbreviations again, and skipping John Madden Football 91. Okay, it's nothing but not consistency. However, ever since Madden NFL 06, things have been smooth sailing. Can't wait to look at the title for Madden 14! Well, now I have to change my legal documents. The 25th anniversary of Madden. Sure. Oh, technically, this is the 25th entry in the series, but come on! I consider this to be a real dumb titling quirk done to just stand out while making your entire franchise more confusing to keep up with. Oh yeah, Madden 25! That actually didn't release in 2024. Battlefield 1! No, the first Battlefield was Battlefield 1942, which was followed by Battlefield Vietnam, and then Battlefield 2, then Battlefield 2142, then Battlefield 3, 4, then 1, then 5, now with a Roman numeral. Then Battlefield 2042. Battlefield 1943 may seem like a sequel to Battlefield 1942, but it's just a spin-off, so what does that make Battlefield 1 a spin-off as well, since Battlefield 5 isn't called Battlefield 6? No, it's mainline, unlike Battlefield Online opposed to the other Battlefield games that play online. All of them. Now where does this fit in the picture? Battlefield Online was a Korean exclusive entry in the series that mainly took assets from previous games to make an online multiplayer-only PC game tailor-made for that market, which is a more common practice than you may think. I mean, Call of Duty did it with Call of Duty Online for the Chinese market. I just find the titling funny when pretty much all the other games in the franchise have online play, acting like this is the online one. When Call of Duty World War II was announced, I was pretty annoyed, like acting as if this was the first and only Call of Duty to do World War II. I understand it had been a while since the last game focused on it, but titling it implies like, yup, this is the Call of Duty based in World War II. And this is the banana. Like, come on, man, at least name it something like World War II Returns or something, I don't know. Call of Duty's already having the issue of reusing titles. We had Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, followed up with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and later on 3. Then with some re-releases of the first Modern Warfare, the number 4 was dropped, like with Call of Duty Modern Warfare Reflex Edition and Remastered, and then the 2019 game launched, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. To be fair, no other game was named that. And then the sequel to it, to also be fair, the same applies. I just wish sometimes they'd cut it with the reused titles. I mean, I get it. I don't care if they have 2 games called Modern Warfare 2 because 95% of the people buying aren't going to be having colorful discussions on the state of the video game industry and will never even reference a Call of Duty that released over 2 years ago. Most of these consumers treat each new Call of Duty, Need for Speed, and Madden like a bag of chips. Open, consume, dispose of. So reusing a title or making this entry a confusing name in comparison to previous games, it doesn't matter. You can name the next Call of Duty Ice Smell. It would do just as well as last year's, and people would just call it the Call of Duty for this year. Last year's smelled better, though. But it also just rubs me the wrong way when games with the exact same name, logo, even box art release, and they are completely and utterly different. You can no longer just call the game Rayman Raving Rabbids. You have to specify Rayman Raving Rabbids, the Wii, Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, and PC version, or the Nintendo DS version, or the Game Boy Advance version, because these 3 games are nothing alike, being in different genres entirely. I feel that with these handheld versions of console games, they name them and market them as the same thing in a way to kind of trick unknowing consumers into thinking this is gonna be the same game you see all the commercials for on TV. I mean, come on, do you remember remember ever seeing the Game Boy Color version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 in the advertising? No, they just show screenshots of the PlayStation version, but lists Game Boy Color as one of the platforms. Oh, well, surely. If this isn't the real Tony Hawk 2, then what is? How many games are called Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, and how many of them are truly the same? You know, this would be a great opportunity to use that for game system subtitle, but no, just call this Jeopardy, and this, well, make sure the people know. But you know what's the most depressing thing ever? Why? You title a game with Volume 1, showing the intentions of this being a long and meaningful series. SNK Arcade Classics Volume 1, Best of PlayStation Network Volume 1. Damn, it's almost like a Volume 2 exists, just like Madden 14. You gotta have a lot of confidence to put Volume 1 in a game's title, almost enough to ensure that Volume 2 is probably already underway. Is this used as a bargaining chip to get a sequel produced? It doesn't work. I will say something. I love seeing a prequel with the subtitle 0. I just think it sounds good, feels good, like it's the perfect subtitle. It's a great buzzword on its own, and adding it to a franchise name, it's immediately obvious what it is. Earthbound released here in North America on the SNES, but is actually titled Mother 2 in Japan, with the first game on NES almost releasing over here in English, but getting canceled at the last minute. What was called Mother in Japan was meant to be called Earthbound here, but since that first game got scrapped, when they brought Mother 2 over, they just called that Earthbound. However, that original English localization was eventually found and dumped online by fans for people to download and play. Since we already had a game called Earthbound release, it just made sense for fans to call this Earthbound 0. I couldn't think of anything better to call it. You can find fan-made reproduction cartridges of the game with this title, and it just feels right. But then, Nintendo decided to finally officially release the game on the Wii U's eShop in 2015. What did they call it? This is one of my least favorite titles ever. It sounds so dumb. I'm sure they would have loved to actually call it Earthbound 0, but had to settle for beginnings because we don't want people to know fans exist. Sure, don't use the word 0, but why beginnings? Why not origins, inception? Hell, Genesis is a synonym for beginning, and that would have been a wicked subtitle. Yeah, it may have already been used for the Sega console, but there are other books of the Old Testament, Deuteronomy. But no, you pick 3 of the worst syllables I've ever heard. Though I've heard worse. Some names just look and sound weird the first time you see them. I remember calling The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Zelda Wii U for years before it finally got its official name, and I thought using the word breath felt off. You look up any reaction to a new game getting announced online, and every single person posting a video has to say the title out loud when it appears on screen.
Super Smash Brothers Ultimate? Oh, Jumanji the video game!
Oh! Which, hey, this game, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. Bless you. Originally announced as a crossover between Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem, titled none other than Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, which we'll get to you later. Eventually was renamed to an unlocalized Japanese title for a bit, and then Tokyo Mirage Session Sharp FE. Yes, Sharp, not hashtag or number or pound. Not sure why we needed this portion. I understand FE is an abbreviation for Fire Emblem, and many have pointed out how TMS backwards is SMT, Shin Megami Tensei. I have to give them credit. They found a way to incorporate both series titles into one while keeping this as its own separate thing, which is what it is. While originally planned as a traditional crossover between SMT and Fire Emblem, it became more of an original game that just plays like Shin Megami Tensei, with Fire Emblem characters making appearances assisting the main cast who are completely new and original. So I guess the title was as good as we could get. I still think the Sharp FE is unnecessary though. Like, if you wanted to push out Fire Emblems in the game, the title already barely makes any sense, just throw it in there. But again, I guess they wanted to push this as its own original thing rather than specifically advertise it as a Fire Emblem game. Except they did just that in a few trailers they posted online. I don't even play this game. Let's talk about that pesky cross. Christ. Kind of an odd trend for a bit there was using an X between 2 words to symbolize a crossover and pronouncing it as cross. Shin Megami Cross Fire Emblem, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Street Fighter Cross Mega Man, Project Cross Zone, which, what is that? A tactical role-playing game featuring characters from Sega, Namco, and Capcom? Oh, I get the title now. Yeah. Letters. Then they started moving away from the cross and started using a plus sign instead. Mario plus Rabbids, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Advance Wars 1+2, Pro Skater 1+2, Box Boy plus Box Girl. Just Where did this trend come from? The plus sign I find to look a little juvenile. I don't like that. I'm too mature for this. I'm an adult who eats caviar. Localized titles. Something they just don't do anymore. I've been a little confused as to why Bandai Namco stopped using the English title for Taiko no Tatsujin. You know, Taiko Drum Master. We got it over here on the PS2. It's just a fun rhythm game with a drum peripheral. We only ever got this game in North America, but Japan just kept on getting these damn things. Finally, in 2018, we got another localized title. The first Nintendo Switch entry in the series, Taiko no Tatsujin Drum and Fun. They didn't even try to change anything like they did with the PS2 game, changing the song list for North America. They didn't have the Jimmy Neutron theme in Japan. In Drum and Fun, it's nothing but Japanese pop songs, anime music, the works, which, hey, it's cool to see they're sticking to what makes Taiko Taiko. But like I said, I'm just confused why they don't just call it Taiko Drum Master over here still. It's not like a butchered localized title. Taiko no Tatsujin roughly translates to Taiko Master of Drums. I guess because they're barely changing anything from the Japanese releases song-wise now, they wanted to convey that through the title itself, which, thinking about it that way, it makes sense. Now, Europe, I have a question. Why? Mario and Luigi Dream Team. Good title, games about dreams and Mario and Luigi teaming up. Brilliant. Now, why do they have to call it Mario and Luigi Dream Team Brothers in Europe? To show they did the math? This is one of the most peculiar name changes from North America to Europe, second only to Mario and Luigi. Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. Great title. Game's about a crossover between the Mario and Luigi RPG series and the Paper Mario RPG series. Jamming them both together, it's absolutely perfect. But did their parents Well, that makes even less sense. At least with Dream Team, it's like, okay, Dream Team and Brothers are related enough terms. Paper Jam Brothers just sounds like I'm ending one sentence and starting another. Europe often gets these over-explanatory titles, like Mario Strikers being titled Mario Strikers Football, Kirby's Return to Dreamland being Kirby's Adventure Wii, Star Fox being... I don't know, but hands down, one of the biggest localization titling fiascos was the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3 all happily came over from Japan to North America. Not Europe, though. They were happy just getting the spin-off title Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which was titled Mystic Quest Legend over there. And then all of a sudden, in 1997, math. After Final Fantasy 3 came Final Fantasy 7, or for Europe, after one Final Fantasy that wasn't even titled Final Fantasy, came Final Fantasy 7. This was, of course, due to not every Final Fantasy releasing outside of Japan at the time, so we never received the original Final Fantasy 2 and 3. Though we did receive 4, they just renamed it to Final Fantasy 2 over here. Same with 6, we got it as 3. By the time Final Fantasy 7 launched, I think they realized how counterintuitive this was. Sure, you may not have released all the games over here, but you're not even naming them something different with a subtitle or something, so in the end, we have 2 Final Fantasy 2s and 2 3s. Eventually, they filled in the blanks over time. All the Final Fantasies became playable in some form throughout the world, so they did this for the best. If they kept up this naming convention, Final Fantasy X would actually be Final Fantasy VII, which would be the stupidest thing I've seen all day. It just turned midnight. Skipping entries is an oddly common trend with video games. Hell, Dragon Quest still does it to this day, and actually went through a whole localization name change back in the day, titled Dragon Warrior here for the first few entries until converting to the original Japanese name Dragon Quest. This was due to another product already being titled Dragon Quest in North America, similar to why Star Fox's name had to be changed in Europe for a bit until the rights issues were figured out for later entries. Hey, it may be confusing, but thank God they don't lie. If there's one thing I don't respect, it's a title that lies. Going back to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Is it a spoiler to say they're on thin ice? Not only does the game only cover the first, I don't know, third of the original Final Fantasy VII, now being split up into 3 different remake entries, but they changed so much and turned it into a completely different game with a completely different story. To be fair, they are remaking it. Just because you remake something doesn't mean it's beat for beat. The title doesn't lie like crazy, but they obviously know what they're doing. The box art and logo, the opening, it's all supposed to give the vibe that this is the original Final Fantasy VII remade for modern audiences, but in reality, it's an alternate take on FF7, so calling it this is kind of misleading. There's no getting around it. Though I can understand and agree with arguments in its favor, Dreamcast Collection gets no sympathy. That's a damn Sega Saturn game! Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. Alright, well, you use the word "the" in the title twice. No, 3 times. I just find this to be a sloppy one. The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. But on top of that, Definitive Edition. Yeah, okay. Definitive Edition should only be used when, like, yeah, no shit. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is definitely the definitive way to play, but even then, when it doesn't include some content introduced in Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, like, you could've just called it Xenoblade Remastered, you know? And don't even get me started on movie games. Like, isn't it kind of weird when a game based on a movie still has the word movie in it? Like, I get it, it's based on the movie. You can't just call the game based on the SpongeBob movie anything but. That's why it's good to be more specific sometimes. This isn't B-movie, this is B-movie game. Just call it B-game. Oh, I'm sorry, that's already taken. But you know what really rubs me the wrong way with many games like this is when you have to have the presenter at the beginning of the title. It's not Tarzan Untamed, it's Disney's Tarzan Untamed. In that game like Epic Mickey, it's not even Disney's Epic Mickey, it's just Disney Epic Mickey. Where does it go on an alphabetical list? Is this Guilty Party or Disney Guilty Party? Is this Cars the video game or Disney Pixar Cars the video game? It's like everybody just calls this series Civilization, not Sid Meier's Civilization, but that's what's on the game's spine. So when I alphabetize my games, do I do the right thing the wrong way or the wrong thing the right way? Alphabetizing your games definitely makes you see these things in a bit of a different light. Like how some Mario spin-offs swap between titling themselves Mario and Super Mario, which can get kind of annoying when games like Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars are on the same console. Now they go in different spots on the shelf. Then when you have sequels to games that always start with a different word, Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the first game is last here. The World Ends With You to Neo, The World Ends With You. Why couldn't it have been The World Ends With You Neo? Especially when making Neo the core title of this game, like there's already Neo games on the PlayStation 4. But this Neo is supposed to be a futuristic feeling variant of the word new, which we already get enough of. New Super Mario Brothers, new Pokemon Snap, new Super Lucky's Tale, new Carnival games, which they went from Carnival games to new Carnival games, back to Carnival games again. And they say taxes are complicated. Listen, I get it. The word new is very safe. It makes sense in many regards, like with new Pokemon Snap. Yeah, you could name it Pokemon Snap 2, but the game is more about doing the same thing the original did, again, while being its own game. So, new Pokemon Snap makes sense. You could call it Super Pokemon Snap or something, but new works in this situation. Same with new Super Mario Brothers. The problem is when you make 9 more of them, you start to question the authenticity of the word new here. It can become incredibly confusing. New is always used to describe the condition of your video game. New Super Mario Brothers. Used. The word kind of implies this is just an improved and updated version of an old thing, when in most cases, it's actually a direct follow-up or successor. But parents will just look up new Super Mario game for their kids, and this is always what pops up, so that must be why it sells so well. But if they were willing to use such a marketing-friendly term for one Pokemon game, dear God, why not this one? Pokken Tournament, a Pokemon fighting game in the style of Tekken, hence why the 2 names are combined. I don't know why they didn't just call it Pokemon Tournament. I get the pun they're making, but you do realize the game would do infinitely better if you stop being cute about it. Just do what Ubisoft did, okay? They made a game called Gods and Monsters. That works, just do that. Isn't it the worst when the working title for a game is better than the final title? Like, I prefer the working titles for Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy because they gave me hope for a future that never happened. God, my uncle for putting me through so much misery. If it wasn't for letters, I wouldn't have to know why this pisses me off. You know, just to spite him, I'm not gonna use letters anymore. But I can damn well use words. And I'm gonna spread them, telling everybody how we're done using letters, and by proxy, titles. Can't be pissed if I can't read. Or I'm dead. So, say goodbye, Mr. Bones, and please welcome, what? Oh man, I wanna play tennis. What have I done? Hey y'all, Scott here. Guess how many Wii plays I've resold in my lifetime? Enough. Not for resale? Well, I'm stuck with these things. Might as well get comfortable. I think we've all come across a game in our collection with this on it. Not for resale. I bought this used. Who fucked up? Yeah, whenever I saw one of these labels as a kid, I thought it held the same value as one of those mattress tags you're legally not allowed to rip off. Or those silica gel packets that say don't throw away, eat. Oh shit. But Not For Resale always eluded me because I almost exclusively obtained Not For Resale games from resellers. So what does it truly mean? Well, most not-for-resale games were included in bundles, whether it was a console bundle, a controller bundle, hell, if it was merely just in an outer box. Most of the time, the UPC code scanned would be on that outer shell, so this is a way to avoid people harvesting product bundles and trying to return a part of it to make some money, hence, not for resale. However, many not-for-resale releases aren't meant to be sold to the public, so those are labeled as such as well. And listen, I have a whole treasure trove of them I bought off eBay. Oh, god damn it! One of the first not-for-resale games that comes to mind is the original Sonic the Hedgehog. It won't come off. Sometimes it can be a bit tricky to find a copy of the game without the label on the front because it was sold with so many Sega Genesis consoles. Sonic 2 suffered a similar fate, though at least its label isn't nearly as egregious. But see, this is generally what not-for-resale games look like. Obviously, I prefer the label not be there, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? These games are caked! This is a sticker that was applied to original Xbox titles purchased within Microsoft's company store, so the store within their office building. That makes these really cool collectibles. Just thought they were within the Microsoft company walls. But to be fair, I mean, how far does that mentality take you? It's not like Bill Gates himself sold this game, so collecting these would be opening up a whole new can of worms. This is my copy of Elbits. This is my copy of Elbits from Kentucky. I mean, this company has nearly 200,000 employees. It's not like this is that exclusive of a variant, but still kind of cool. Oh my god, this sticker is medically bonded to the case. There's no way you're getting this off. It's like the metallic NFL stickers on games. You ever successfully peel one of these off? No, because you're depressed. So imagine 2 of these on one case. That's fucked up. However, these don't say not for resale. They specify they're not to be sold. You know, it's concerning that has that label, but I don't. So the Microsoft company purchases aren't supposed to leave the company. Why? I mean, there's no difference between this copy of the game and this one. Just the plastic case, and that's completely swappable. At least some not-for-resale games have every right to not leave the premises, like these. Demo Kiosk games. The only way you're owning these is if your name's Walmart. I've always wanted a crisis that was existential. Back in the day, hell, sometimes even now, you'll see systems set up in stores playing demos of games with controllers only a mother could love. Most of these would be rocking multi-game demo discs, where you could select a demo to play, or it would cycle through trailers while idle. These right here are single-game demos, with barely anything denoting that, except for a lone not-for-resale icon. You'd think it would say demo or kiosk edition or anything other than not for resale, which is what you'd see on some games meant to be available to the public, like those Sonic 1 and 2 copies. But when Mario Tennis says it and I own it, like, you think I'm wearing a bulletproof vest for nothing? These releases feel dirty to own. Like, how is this the timeline we're in? Seeing these games run on anything but a store kiosk is incredibly surreal, but tends to be a huge power trip. Like, damn, my bedroom's a Kmart. Go ahead. Me. It's so cool to own these not-for-resale kiosk games because they genuinely feel like a forbidden fruit. Take, for example, this Nintendo DS Pokemon cartridge for Celebi distribution. Didn't we have an assembly about this? There are lots of not-for-resale Pokemon cartridges meant for in-store use only to distribute unique Pokemon to customers that visit with their Pokemon games. But of course, with most of these store promotions being pretty damn over, if I need my Celebi fix, I own the cartridge, I'm good. Up. Actually, this can be fixed by changing your system's clock to a date in which this specific distribution event would have been going on. Why restrict distribution if it can be cheesed so easily? It's really great that these events were handled in this way because all these years later, you can still get these Pokemon after selling your dad. But these not-for-resale cartridges are a special case. If we want something a little more traditional, we have numerous demo cards available, but this one right here, this one is for the history books. A not-for-resale demo kiosk cartridge for Mario Kart DS, interestingly using an older logo from development. In addition to that, while playing the game, you can see an item that didn't make it to the final release pop up, the Chain Chomp from Double Dash. It's not actually usable in the demo, but the icon is here, and that alongside the beta logo is enough to warrant my new fugitive status. Many of these cards contain specific information regarding the store they were sent to because they were meant to be sent back to Nintendo once they were done being used. Somebody must have been shot for me to own this. But hey, sometimes it may be worth it. These not-for-resale cards across gaming history can range from being worth peanuts to really expensive expensive peanuts. I feel that it mostly has to do with the legacy of the title in question, any content that didn't make it to the final release being present in the demo version, or none of the above. I paid $250 to break the law. You know, murdering someone's cheaper. You know what's the lamest thing about these not for resale cartridges on Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64? They mostly aren't even special demo versions. They're the full retail releases. There is no difference between playing Stunt Race FX and Stunt Race FX not for resale. So then what's the point of owning these? It for sure can be pretty cool to experience the in-store demos of games from back in the day. Something as simple as a level select exclusive to that version or text telling you the game is coming soon can be incredibly novel to see these days. It's almost like you've traveled back in time when you play these, since they weren't meant to be experienced outside of the year they were released in. But most of these not for resale cartridges aren't that. They were used for demo purposes, yes, but there's no differences in the games themselves, and oftentimes the label isn't even different enough to warn people thinking you're fucking cool. Wow, my Banjo-Kazooie states not for resale in fine print. Yeah, well, so does my copy of Uncharted 1, and Detroit Become Human, and Ring Fit Adventure, and Super Mario Maker, and Nintendo Switch Sports. So why spend $150 on this? Oh, because of the historic value. That? I'm gonna keep this cancerous mole. I'm a historian. Hey, listen, I get it. I love wasting cash on things that only really have value to me. What's better than investing your money? Not. I just find the not for resale cartridges on these consoles to be only really for the most diehard of collectors out there, considering how the only difference is the not for resale text and sometimes a sticker on the back denoting how this is for stores. Sometimes you get a little bit more to these, like how Donkey Kong 64 has a not for resale version in a standard gray cartridge instead of the yellow one the retail release shipped in. And even though I'm colorblind and can't appreciate the differences, I'm happy to say I own this incredibly rare version. Yeah, nearly $2,000 for Great Donkey Kong. At the very least, this is one of the few not for resale cartridges that is a demo. It's not just the full game, so there is significantly more value to this as a piece of gaming history. The value lies in significantly less content. So that's pretty much the different types of not for resale releases. Either they were bundled in with consoles, accessories, or even other games, or they were meant for store demo kiosks. And it can be pretty confusing considering some not for resale games everybody owned. They're nothing special, they're dirt cheap, while others are the crown jewels of their respective console libraries. So let's play a little game here to really get down to what makes a not for resale title expensive. Welcome to Cheap or Steep! Yes! Finally an effective use for 2 minutes! This is Cheap or Steep! The game show hell-bent on lacking purpose. Now onto our next order of business, contestants. That's how it's pronounced. Do not contest ants. Terry Lessler!
Hey, great to be here. Big fan of answers. Glad to support the cause.
Geriatrics!
I eat question marks till just the periods left.
And Jeb Jab!
It's pronounced me.
Well, I hope you all prepared for the afterlife being all you can look forward to after this. Our buzzer budget ran out, so we bought everybody guns instead.
The answer's true.
Our first game is Fable 3, not for resale. Is it cheap or steep?
I think I'm gonna go with steep on this one.
Oh, I am sorry. It is $5. It is cheap. Anybody else think they got the answer?
Is the answer cheap?
No, it's perfectly fair. Next up is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, not for resale on Game Boy Advance. Is it cheap or steep?
Cheap?
The answer is around $22, which I don't know about your thoughts on the economy.
I love it.
But to some people, that's pretty steep. I mean, it is just a demo after all. Any other takers?
Steep?
That's your opinion. And now we're on to the final game. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask Gray not for resale game cartridge. Is it cheap or steep?
Steep!
Incorrect. The answer is fucking steep. There's no correlation. I mean, what about this Blu-ray included with PlayStation 3 consoles? This is not for resale. Basically, this one includes a bunch of trailers for games, plus movies to push the Blu-ray format in the PS3 as a player. But it also includes a free game. That's an amazing bonus. So this not for resale product is about $5 these days. But this not for resale product, which is the same damn thing but without the free game, these are was so confusing! They're either something everybody has or nobody does. And Not For Resale is such a meaningless thing plastered on so many video games that confuses consumers more than anything. So many people ask, oh, what, so I can't resell this? No, of course you can. This is a warning for the stores. But it's not obvious, which begs the question, is it time for a new phrase? It's bedtime. Hey y'all! Man, I love video games. Just an experience you can't get anywhere else. Is that the DMV? Yeah. Good things come to those who wait, like a diagnosis. Thank God, now I know! And video games are no different. I mean, have you ever played one? Half the time you're not. Loading screens! Because, damn, this is easy to research. Done. It's something we're all used to at this point. It's honestly weirder if a game doesn't have a loading screen. You freak. Loading wasn't very common in the early days of gaming, primarily due to the use of cartridges. See, when we plug this in, the console doesn't really need to load up anything. The game is here in its entirety, and it connects directly to the console like a puzzle piece. You didn't have a laser reading a spinning disc, scanning data to load into the system. Everything you could possibly need from this video game is right here, and the console can read and display it all almost instantaneously. Definitely helped how simple games were back then. I mean, like, oh wow, this game has loading screens and this game doesn't? And hey, cartridge games did have to load things. You just never noticed. They rarely stopped you dead in your tracks to announce big things in the works, which made the cartridge games that did just come off as pretentious. Look at me, I'm a big game with lots to load. You're Mickey fucking Mania. A handful of cartridge games did feature visible loading screens, which, like, okay. Batman Forever on Super Nintendo just tells you to hold on. Why? This is on screen for like 2 seconds. If you didn't put anything here, I wouldn't know it was even loading. What if they didn't put this here? Were they afraid they were gonna lose ya? Well, this is just fucking ridiculous. Street Fighter Alpha 2 doesn't ever say it's loading, but I'm not dumb. At least Fatal Fury on Super Nintendo had the guts to admit it. But hey, these are unique situations. Obviously, when the system's being pushed to its limit, some funny things are gonna happen. Yeah, okay, fucking hilarious. But with other formats, loading was far more commonplace. You got it with floppy disks, cassettes, and man, when you saw that loading screen, it was the exact same as any other loading screen. Not really a ton to geek out to here. I mean, if somebody asks you what your favorite classic loading screen is, why are we having this conversation? And my lord, you really needed something back then. With computer systems like the Commodore 64, loading could take minutes. And what did you get for it? Epilepsy. Thankfully, there were fast loaders to help speed the computer up. Some in particular included mini games you could play while the full game was loading, like the Space Invaders wannabe, which is ingenious. So damn ingenious, Namco did the same thing on Ridge Racer for the PlayStation 1. And then filed a patent for minigames and loading screens to ensure we would never get anything like this ever again. How did this give them any competitive edge? Damn, I want to play Swampy's Revenge, but what am I gonna do when I'm not playing Swampy's Revenge? See, with Ridge Racer, I don't have these problems. Ridge Racer finally gets a point. This has brought us to the dawn of the modern loading screen. The PlayStation 1 era, when loading became a standard you just came to expect from most games. But not every game. Loading was at the forefront of the cartridges versus CDs debate. The PlayStation could house games with large file sizes, full motion video, voice acting, these huge worlds to explore, all at the cost of lengthier load times, while the Nintendo 64 lacked all of that for the sake of quicker loading. Guess who won? Thank God I saved 30 seconds on the load times, and now my life can suck quicker. Turns out, nobody cared if they had to wait for a game to load, and the battle between the PS1 and N64 proved that. I mean, here are games that had loading screens on PlayStation, compared to the games that didn't have loading screens on Nintendo 64. Of course, now that there was no escaping load times, some developers decided to get creative with them. Obviously, Ridge Racer is an example of that, featuring a bite-sized version of Galaxian to play while waiting, which obviously opened up a world of loading screen possibilities. Fucking patents, man. Now, over the years, we have gotten some interactive loading screens, like Test Drive on PS2 and Xbox. We got Pong! Now, wait a second. Why were they able to do this when Namco had this concept patented?
Same way you can legally murder. Don't get caught.
I assume this just wasn't on their radar, or they didn't care that much. I mean, how much did Namco really utilize their patent here? Well, look no further than Tekken 5. Jesus Christ! How do we go from like 12 pixels to more than 12 pixels? This loading screen is based on the arcade game Starblade, and it's amazing to see how far Namco loading screens have come.
It's crazy. They went from singular to plural.
Yeah, the Tekken and Ridge Racer games are some of the only major examples from them, which, man, for a developer with such a rich arcade history, you'd think it'd be the easiest thing in the world to throw any of these bastards on a loading screen. Hell, on PS1 alone, you could have had a little mini Pac-Man game while Pac-Man World loaded. Easy. But no. I mean, why bother when you own the patent? Not like there's any competition. Thankfully, this patent expired in 2015. Now, I don't know how much it was genuinely enforced over the years, but regardless, we can rejoice. Video game loading screens can finally be fun!
Fun sucks.
Hey now, let's be fair. We've had some pretty great ones over the years. One that immediately comes to mind is Splatoon on Wii U. When you're waiting for the online match to start, you can play Squid Jump down on the gamepad. Honestly, one of the best uses of the dual screens of the Wii U. It almost makes the investment worth it, almost. Especially considering Splatoon 2 just lets you dick around with the music, and Splatoon 3 just has you practice the actual game. Boo! That's practical. I don't want practical. I want jokes. But I can't deny how smart practice rooms are as loading screens. Like with the Bayonetta games, you have an opportunity to try out some combos or discover brand new ones. Or the Assassin's Creed games, which are the exact same thing, but now including the addition of nothing to do. Just running around in a void. That's all I need, which explains why I'm malnourished. These make sense in the context of the franchise. You're transported into the lives of your ancestors, so the environment has to load up, not only in the game, but the story as well. It gives you something to do, that's for damn sure. I mean, Rayman Origins and Legends both let you do similar things while the stage is loading. It just gives you a chance to play the game before you play the game. A little taste, you know, get your bearings on the controls, the feel of the character. I mean, it isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but these three examples showcase how loading screens can actually enhance the gameplay that follows. For examples, you ever just sitting there with these static ass screens and then when the game starts, you're not ready. Oh no, damn it, why do I play with butter to pass the time? These ensure you're prepared for anything.
How about an ulcer?
Bad loading screens. What makes one so abysmal?
I'll tell you later.
Why do the games with the longest load times have nothing to do during them? Lego City Undercover. Boot the game up, you get this spinning police badge for nearly a minute, title screen, and then... Welcome back, old friend. What, the title screen took this long to load? And you couldn't at least have a progress bar or something? Probably not. That would have frustrated me more seeing how slow it is visualized. But that's the Wii U version. On the other consoles, we get a different loading screen and faster load times. Faster is faster. We can move this 3D model of a Lego set around, which, I mean, this isn't great, but Lord, it's better than the original. If you stare at this long enough, you will go insane. Now, does that make Half-Life 2's better? These ones are just weird, man. How they just freeze the game randomly to load. Not like this happens before or after a cutscene or during a time in which it makes sense for the game to fade to black and take a second to load. Nah, it's just, hey, I know you're in the middle of playing, but check this out. It's got the same energy as, hey, fuck you, look at this badge. Of course, I understand why Half-Life 2 does what Half-Life 2 is. We're playing in a massive world here, especially for 2004. Sure, it's awkward, but to an extent, I respect them for just telling it how it is. Not trying to hide anything. Yeah, we're loading, what of it? That's something loads of games refuse to do, opting to mask these screens in ways that feel natural to the players so they don't notice. Yeah, I don't notice. Getting harder to find a modern game these days that doesn't feature squeezing through a crack for 10 seconds. And because of that, it's easy to point at this and claim that this is all to mask loading screens. Now, what's my source?
Common sense.
I mean, why the hell else would these characters be squeezing through cracks? 'Cause they have to? No, it's obviously because they're trying to hide something. They're f***ing with me, and they dare f*** their customer? I found that once people notice something's a thing, they all of a sudden need to have a stance on it. Like, are these really that annoying or annoying in the slightest? Ugh, another hidden load screen, masked by this incredibly natural part of the level design that I only found out hides loading screens once every game started to do it. Do these even hide loading screens? Some developers have come out to say these are here for design purposes, to funnel the player in a particular direction while naturally stopping them from going backwards, which, I mean, sure, the game is loading stuff during this segment. Could be a lot, could be a little, but to claim this is just a hidden load screen, it's not fair. Most of the time when these pop up, it's to aid the level design first and foremost. And if these really get on your nerves, well, damn, I'd like to see what else pisses you off.
Fingers.
Whenever I hear arguments about these, they're often called pace breakers, but I don't get that at all. When are you in the middle of action and it just hard cuts to this? These almost always occur during a pretty quiet walking segment. And if this is a pace breaker, I don't want to know what this is. It's easy to blame the games themselves for bad load times, but hey, it's not always their fault. Let's take a look at the Neo Geo CD, a console with such horrendous load times, they put out a revision with the sole purpose of just fixing that. The Neo Geo CD-Z. It's just the Neo Geo CD, but now with faster loading. I never said fast loading. These early CD-based consoles had it pretty rough. I mean, it takes minutes upon minutes to boot games up, and for what? Worth the wait. But what game has the worst load times? Well, one that immediately comes to mind is Nintendo Badge Arcade on the Nintendo 3DS, a free download that would offer icons to decorate your home screen. You pay for credits to nab them with a crane game, with new badges being added via consistent updates. So there's a lot going on here. You gotta load up the app, connect to the internet, and the 3DS menu is heavily involved here, doing something it was never designed to do. So there's tons of reasons this takes a while to boot up. 10 minutes of reasons. Jesus, that makes Grand Theft Auto 5s look like a blink and you miss it moment. Well, if the blink turns into a nap. Back when it launched on the Xbox 360, GTA 5 would take like 3 minutes to boot up, which a few re-releases later, here on the PlayStation 5, it takes still pretty damn long for an Xbox 360 game on PlayStation 5. Well, how about an Xbox 360 game on Xbox 360? Sonic the Hedgehog from 2006. Here, watch this. You've just experienced a third of Sonic 06. Load screens genuinely make up such a huge percentage of this game's runtime. You talk to a character to start a mission. Loading screen. The character tells you something. Loading screen. Here's the mission. Loading screen. The character thanks you. Loading screen. And you know what the craziest thing is? This shit boots up instantly. That's like a 4-second load, and then here's the title screen, which then plays this huge cutscene. Yet it has to load Robert telling me to put my damn shoes on. It just makes me want to play a good game, like Bloodborne. This is the worst loading screen. Like, look at this. What the hell is this? It's the logo on black. That's it. And with how difficult the game is, you're gonna die a lot and see this pop up every single time for a minute and a half straight. I'll hand it to Sonic 06. What's more interesting to look at here? Silver the Hedgehog or nothing? Damn, give me a minute. Listen, I can deal with frequent load times. I can deal with long load times. I can deal with nothing to do or look at during load times. But when I have to deal with more than one of these at a time, that's what makes for the worst loading screens. GTA 5 is easy to forgive considering you have one long boot up and then practically no load times during the actual game. But then with something like Animal Crossing New Horizons, there's this long ass wait at the start, an unstoppable dialogue sequence, another wait, and then when we get into the actual game, we still have these clunky ass loads when entering buildings. What exactly are we loading here? Dude, loading screens can be the worst things ever. But are there any that are truly the best? Even some of the coolest ones out there, they're kind of just making the most out of a bad situation. Look up best loading screens of all time and tell me, do they elicit a hanker? Skyrim lets me move a 3D model around sluggishly. Well, hot damn, at that point, this is the true loading screen. Resident Evil's ominous opening door really added to the survival horror experience. The genuine fear of what's on the other side just made 10 times more effective by how slow it was. This is a loading screen that enhanced the game. Until after you've seen it for the 40th time, it kind of loses its luster. Oh God, what's on the other side? It's drywall. Tips and tricks, yeah, that's a pretty easy way to use up this time, but I don't think I ever learned a damn thing from these. Any tip and or trick on these things is surface level knowledge that's just like, wow, the more you know. Lots of cute ones like these Dragon Ball titles, Okami's Paw Prints, Devil May Cry 3's Assault Charges. Hey, I respect the hell out of these. They're pretty cool. But that's the farthest they ever go. If I had the choice between no loading screens and loading screens with funny pictures on them, would I rather wait or not? Like, I know I sound like the last guy you'd want to hang out with by siding with the former, but I'm sorry, I like these, but let's be honest here. Nowadays, as loading screens become less and less frequent and intrusive with the evolution of technology, anybody that says how they miss loading screens, I just have to respond with, really? It's like saying you miss instruction manuals or game magazines or video rental stores. I have some great memories with these things, but do you truly miss them? If they are brought back, are you genuinely gonna utilize them, or are you just gonna think it's neat? Because with the release of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles, SSD storage became a standard for video games, making load times, well, not extinct, but so damn fast, there's really no point to doing anything special with these screens anymore. And listen, I'd love to give some poetic statement on how we lost something with the death of unique loading screens, but how many games were doing them to begin with? Most didn't care, like look at this. And the ones that did care to put something here, it says more about the developers and their passion to make the most out of the cards they're dealt with than it does about the validity of loading screens. The screens aren't what's special here. It's what the developers decided to do with them. Scott here. Loading screens are the only thing that stands between me and happiness. We spent decades complaining about them, and now that they're not as common, you know people are out there saying, damn, I miss loading screens. Why? People love to bitch. For example, oh,